Welcome, everybody, to another episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. My name is Dennis, your host, also known as Canoe Hound. And CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is a show that brings you a lot closer to the great outdoors by bringing you hot topics and the guests that you enjoy and watch on YouTube. It's a great opportunity for us all to get together here with this upcoming winter season ahead of us. So we got a really cool show for you. Real cool show. Anyways, hope everybody that's in the live stream tonight there are regular followers, but hopefully we've got some newbies out there that haven't been to the show before. And if you haven't been to this show before, hopefully you'll really enjoy what we got going. It's a show that we put together on a weekly basis just to, like I say, bring you a little closer to that great outdoors, right? So if you haven't already done so, just down here, over here, you'll see a subscribe button. If it's gray, please do click that thing, turn it red, and become a Canoe Hound Adventures subscriber. And hit the bell notification while you're there as well. And while you're at it, if you want to know exactly what's going on with the show, the channel, and everything that's going to be coming up, you could also follow us on Facebook at CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. And you'll be in tune with all that neat stuff that's coming up. We are live here every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, it's really shaping up. This is already, I can't believe it's already episode 8 of the second season of the show. So thanks to everybody who is participating. Like I say, if you're new, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'd like to start with a bit of news about the channel and updates and things that we got going on while people are continuing to fill up the chat over here. Last week's show, we had John and Aaron from Backcountry Angling, Ontario. What a fun show it was. John and Aaron are awesome people. I don't know if they're in the chat tonight, if they're watching tonight or not. But if you are, thanks again for last week. We had a few surprising guests showed up at later on in the evening there, which made it that much more better. But I just want to say, you know, it really surprises me, or not, well, it doesn't surprise me at all, but that show last week is actually our 4th highest viewed live stream show in 2 seasons. So that must speak accolades for the quality of content and the people that we had on the show. John and Aaron, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much again. If you're new to the show and you happen to miss it, and you are familiar with Backcountry Angling Ontario, the YouTube channel, feel free to watch at a later time. It is live, or not live, but the post it's ready for reviewing. Okay, so you can watch it at any time at your convenience. It was a great show. And also, based on last week's show, I just want to congratulate the winner of our swag giveaway, who was Christine Allison. She correctly answered the question of the week and was randomly drawn from all the correct entries. Just want to touch base on that, too. We will be doing a swag giveaway tonight. I urge you, send me an answer. Send me your answer, because you know what? It's always nice to see how many people will actually be participating, but it's good to know that, or it just gives me feedback on the channel. And you know what? You have great chances of winning. Right now, the numbers on the entries have been pretty low. I'd like to see them get a little higher, because we do have some good swag giveaways that we're going to be doing. So quick shout out to a few of our show sponsors. Firstly, and I've been mentioning these people, the Backcountry Coffee Company. Tonight, I'm drinking some Nono's Espresso Blend. Very good coffee. They are our official coffee supplier for CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. How's that for a commercial, guys and gals? Really good coffee. In this case, really good espresso. I like a coffee with a bite. So you can check them out at backcountrycoffeeco.net. Also, you can check out Kid Products, the makers of the Kid Stove, and soon-to-be Kid Reflector Oven. That's coming out on the market very soon. I've had the opportunity to test that baby out. Oh, I got to get me one of them for sure. You can see Kid Products and their full line of products online at kidproducts.com. And also thanks to Great Signs and Graphics, who are the official print and graphic suppliers of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. They take care of all this neat stuff, you know, here, and all this stuff back here, and, you know, all the swag and stuff that we have. Thank you very much to Great Signs and Graphics. You do a great job. All their links can be found in the description below. And just in case you haven't seen the intro, we do have a lot of new Canoe Hound Adventures and Canoe Hound Outdoor Adventure Show merch for sale. One of the new items that we have is actually our iron-on patches. You can get them 1 for $6 or 2 for $10. Plus, if you do buy the 2 for $10, I'll even throw in a free decal pack, which is our sticker pack there. They can go on bottles, cars, granny's forehead, whatever it might be. your hubby's lunch pail, and if you do buy the 2 for $10, I'll also include the shipping. I'm not making a lot of money on this, but it's an opportunity for you to pick up some really cheap Canoe Hound Adventures swag. And you can also get extra stuff or different things over on my Teespring account. That's what I'm trying to think of. Sorry, I just had a ding here. It threw me right off. I got to put my phone on mute. But yeah. Do you want a set of these patches and stickers for free? Here's an opportunity. If you become a Canoe Hound Adventures member by hitting that join button down here below, and if you come in at either the weekend tripper or the solo tripper model or level, I will send you a set of stickers and 2 patches just for becoming a Canoe Hound adventurer. So check that out. It might be something that you're interested in. Very excited to announce next week's guest. I've been talking to this fella for quite a while now, and with the help of one of tonight's guests or one of tonight's panelists, he's hoping to make it happen. Next week on the show, we have one of Canada's true adventurers, Mr. Jim Baird, is going to be on the show. Jim's wife, Tori, was on a couple weeks ago. His brother was on last season. And Jim and his brother were the winners of the History Channel's Alone series, season 4. If you haven't checked that out, watch the series. Pretty awesome. I believe they survived out there 75 days, and they did an awesome job. So tune in next week for at 7 o'clock, and you'll get to meet Jim and ask him whatever questions you may have. Let's see. Once again, if you have any hot topics for the show or anybody you'd like to see on the show, you can drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com and let me know what you'd like to see on the show, and I'll do my darndest to make it happen. As you can see, we've had some great guests. Tonight we got great guests, and in the future we're going to have some great guests. So let's keep the wagon rolling. Just drop me an email, canoehound@gmail.com, or you could reach out with anything, any inquiries to that same email address. I answer them all. So that's all good. And last thing before we get to tonight's panel, if you have any questions, this is an interactive live stream. If you have any questions, put them in the question or in the chat on the left-hand side, but put the word question in capital letters beforehand so I can see it. I really apologize. Over the last couple of weeks, I've missed a lot of questions because I've been really into speaking with our guests and trying to get the best answers. And sometimes I tend to fall way behind in the chat because it's hard to read the chat, conduct an interview, and do all these neat little tricks I'm doing with popping things on the screen and stuff like that. So it's really a big job for one person. But be patient. But what I would like to see even more than the questions over here in the chat is I would like to see you actually come up on panel after 8 o'clock when we do the swag giveaway and ask our panelists any of the questions that you may have. It puts a real one-on-one flair. We had a couple of people come up last week and in the green room after the show. They really said they thought it was a great idea and it really worked out well, and they're glad that they came up and did it. So don't be shy. Come on up, ask a question, and become a panelist. Yeah, let's do that. Anyways, enough of my babbling because I've been going on here for a few minutes. Let's see here. We're going to get right into tonight's panel because we got a really cool show about winter camping, and we're going to get you to warm up to this whole idea. Tonight we have a panel of very knowledgeable individuals who collectively have many years of winter camping experience. All of them have been guests on the show in the past, so you'll see them as familiar faces if you've tuned into the show. Our first panelist is a regular on the show and someone who has had more than a handful of snow down the back of his pants. Welcome to the live stream, Mr. Kevin Callan. Hey, how you doing?
Woo!
He's got the hat and he's got the plaid going and the whole 9 yards, eh?
It's a one sexy beast, I'm telling you.
Yeah. You got your underwear on. Your Canoe Hound underwear.
Yes.
Attaboy. Okay.
Yes,
Our next guest now has the ability to defend himself against this guy over here. Please welcome to the live stream, Mr. Pine Martin. How you doing? Can't hear you. You got your microphone off.
Sorry.
There you go. Welcome to the stream, Martin.
Thanks. I'm doing very well.
Now you can defend yourself.
Against?
I haven't said a bad word about him and about his game.
No, you haven't said anything bad about me since the last live stream you were on. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. I know I called you poopy pants. Sorry about that.
And did you really?
All righty. Our next guest is he's kind of a gear tech because he manages an Algonquin Outfitters, and He's an extraordinaire on Instagram. He posts all kinds of fantastic photographs of the outdoors, and he's an outdoorsman himself. Please welcome to the live stream, Mr. Nate Muskoka. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dennis.
Good. We all got good volume going. And then we got our last panelist tonight. Pardon me?
My audio's lagging just a little bit, but it'll catch up in a minute.
Okay. If you're watching on YouTube, it will. But,
Dennis, Nate knows how to exfoliate. What's the word? A birch tree.
Oh, there we go. Audio caught up just in time. Puffers? Oh, you mean exfoliate the white birch? Yeah.
Yes, I did great research about that when I got home, and I completely understand it now.
Well,
we didn't even need a loofah.
Okay, we got one more person to introduce here. Lastly, regular on the popular podcast Paddling Adventures Radio with hosts Sean Rowley and Derek Spesh. He's the founder of the Outdoor Kind LLC. Welcome to the live stream, Mr. John Van Berger.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
How you doing, John?
Hey, just catching up on a little reading here. What's tonight's topic anyway?
We've been talking about winter camping. But we're going to start. I'm wondering why I'm the only one that's not wearing the black and red plaid. Man, I feel so underdressed for the occasion. This isn't right.
This is a uniform.
What do you think I should do about that, everybody in the chat? Holy cow. Anyways, gentlemen, you know what? I thank you very much for coming out to join me on Tuesday night here and to get a lot of these people in the chat tonight warmed up to winter camping. Many may be seasoned winter campers already. Many may say, winter camping, are you crazy? And then, those who want to dabble into it. So I figure we'd try to take the show. We'll try and break it into little segments so that we're not all over the place, because there's so many things that we can cover with this, right? I figure we'll start with why winter camping, right? How does it differ from other camping seasons? We'll get into talking about some gear, maybe proper clothing, how to make sure you've got the proper clothing for the occasion, because it does require special stuff like, black and red plaid or something like that. We'll talk about shelters, the variations in shelters and things that are available, because there are all kinds. Food, and then we'll get into survival, how to keep warm, how to survive if things go awry. And then we'll talk a bit about where to winter camp. And Kevin's bringing up the first thing. I think that comes out with the food section, does it not? Or is that essential gear? Okay, so let's start. Like I said, why winter camp? Kevin, why winter camp? You're a winter camping aficionado, besides your paddling prowess, right? Why winter camp? Why do you winter camp?
Well, because you're Canadian.
Okay. Yeah, but this guy down here isn't.
Oh,
he still winter camps.
Well, because he adores Canadians. That's why he winter camps.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we got 4 seasons, and we should relish in it. I think it's fantastic that we have 4 seasons. I love having 4 seasons. And if you're going to stay at home and wait winter over and hope it ends really quickly, then really that's not a Canadian thing to do.
Yeah, Keith Park hits on it too. No bugs, except for
No
snow.
bugs. The bears are asleep. It's absolute solace. It's the most quietest time of the season. You see more wildlife in the winter than you do in the summer, even though there's more wildlife in the summer, but you see more in the winter. You challenge your own skill set because, if you messed up, you might die. And no, just joking. Maybe not. But the idea of winter, I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved the tickle of snow on my nose and the howl of the wolf on a full moon, -40. It's great.
Cool. How about yourself, Martin? Do you you're an aficionado when it comes to this stuff as well? You enjoy the outdoor cold weather?
I actually don't love the cold. I'm a little bit on the thin side, so I don't love the cold per se. I don't love the cold for its own sake. But I do love camping, and there's no reason why you can't go camping if you know how to dress. There's that old adage that outdoorsmen have been repeating for ages, which is there's no such thing as bad weather, there's just the wrong clothing. And if you know how to dress and you know how to stay warm, it's really just about knowledge and skills, right? Not so much about gear. I mean, clothing, what you wear matters, but it's more important to understand certain principles. Then you're not fighting the cold. You're not camping in adversity against harsh elements. It doesn't feel that way. Right? You're dressed for the elements. I mean, we've all gone on canoe trips where it is just unspeakably hot and humid and buggy, and we don't say, "Oh, well, I would," except that the weather isn't perfect and there's bugs and all. No, you go anyway, right? There might be times of the year where you decide maybe not, but the longer you do this, the more you figure out how to contend with bugs, how to contend with heat, how to contend with humidity, and it's the same thing with winter. And actually, right now is the hardest time to camp, in my estimation. The shoulder seasons between late summer and true winter, those autumn temperatures and spring temperatures, that's the hardest time. That's when it tends to be dampest and coldest, and you get that bone-in chill if you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Winter tends to be drier and it's beautiful. There tends to be a lot more sun. It's not as damp. It's really quite beautiful out there. But you don't have to love the cold. I don't love the cold. I don't like going out and shoveling my driveway in the morning when it's freezing cold. I don't love winter that much, but I love the outdoors, and the outdoors take on a whole new kind of beauty in winter. The silence of winter you can't describe the silence of winter. You have to live out there.
Right.
And it's not enough to take a hike or a snowshoe in the woods. You have to live out there, spend a couple of days at least out there, and then you really get a sense of what winter is like.
Yeah. And there's something about camping in the wintertime, about stepping outside of your tent or whatever your facility is, whether it's a tent, a yurt, a quincy or whatever, in that morning and just taking that first deep, cold breath of air that goes up into your nose and sort of like you can feel it crystallize in there, and it's just so fresh and like, I don't know, that's my take on it anyways. That's one thing I really enjoy are the mornings when it comes to, when I'm fighting off the frosty toes, that is, but So John, down there, you're in Wisconsin. You're northern Wisconsin, are you not?
I'm central Wisconsin, yep.
Central, okay. And what are your winters like there typically?
Typically, we don't get as much sun as what Martin was just talking about, how sunny, and we don't get that here. We're mostly gray, cold, very cold. Not as much snow here as what you might expect, but we do get very cold temperatures. So for me, getting out is just because I still want to, and what Keith had said about no bugs, that was one of the first things that drew me to it, right? I think we all probably at some point have been out camping in the shoulder season and ended up with snow on the tent, snow on the ground. It's that accidental first winter camping experience. And then after that, you kind of get hooked. And when you go out and you do it, you see things that you can't in summer. When I was up last fall, and went up to Algonquin before the Winter Camping Symposium. I was out taking a hike, and it was still, kind of early in the season where you could see spider webs in the trees, but it was also a really gentle snow. So a lot of the snowflakes were collecting on the spider webs. And it was magic. You can't do that in any other season, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's right along the lines of what Martin said. It's just got that beauty. It's certainly a different season. It's definitely a different animal for sure. Nate, what's your experience with winter camping?
Well, I'm newer to this than the rest of the esteemed panelists here, but I've been out a couple times, and I agree with Martin. I mean, the silence and just the general kind of environment of being out there in the winter compared to the summer is worth the effort all in itself. I love the fact that I'm not much of a tracker, but identifying and following animal tracks in the winter is far, far easier than in the summer. And that's, I love doing that when I'm out there. And you also learn a lot while you're doing that as well. And then, of course, there's less people, there's no bugs, there's, yes, the bears are asleep, and the views are totally different. Winter changes the landscape, and so the same spot in the summer will look completely different in the winter, and the views tend to be, a little bit more extended as well. Because you have no foliage, and you can usually see a little further. So there's a lot that I love about being out there in the winter, aside from the bone numbing cold.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys living up north or north of where I am, anyways, tends to get a little colder up there a little quicker. Nate and I were actually discussing in the green room about paddling, and he said that the water still hasn't frozen over where they are, which is a good thing because it extends your paddling season. But yeah, that's all good stuff. So let's get into chatting a little bit about gear. When it comes to winter camping gear, is it typical to use just the same gear you're going to use in the winter or in the summertime that you would use in the wintertime? You know, or is it something where you could pack away all the summer stuff and bring out the winter gear? Kevin, what's your take on that?
Yeah, my place is a mess right now. Don't look at it. I just doing the switch, right? So,
well, yeah, is that what the snowblower's for in your house? There, you just like blowing all your gear away? Is that
the snowblower was inside my sunroom for no reason? Don't post things on social media, Kevin. My Lord, I just said what should I name it? And then everybody's wondering why is it in my sunroom? My sunroom is colder than it is outdoors. So yeah, I traded that. I traded my buddy Andy. I gave him my really old snow trucker tent for that snowblower, and I've been trying to start it for 2 days.
Old gas. Get rid of the old gas.
I did that already. Check the spark plugs, change the oil. I got it going for a bit, and then it conked out down the hill. I want my tent back. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Tim Foley is giving me a call from Kenny Outdoor Equipment.
Tell him you're busy right now.
Oh, the poor bugger. He's in a
Unless he wants to donate a tent to tonight's swag giveaway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, it's funny. I think he's phoned me because he's in lockdown now, so he's probably a little stressed.
So about the whole gear thing here, then, what do we?
Okay, well, look at this. This is a sleeping bag that you would never take on a summer trip. First of all, because it's good to -30. You're not going to have that in the summer heat wave. And this is a down bag, and this is compressed as much as possible. I can compress it more. But look at the size of it, and it costs $600. Right? So, yeah, gear is completely different in the winter than it is in summer. So it's going to cost you a fortune. So beg, steal, and borrow everything you can the first time doing it. In fact, I would rent a sleeping bag my first few years, and I made a felt liner to put inside, and just washed that when I got home and returned the bag. But eventually, you're going to buy one. And I like a down bag because I find them warmer, more compressible, and you can buy synthetic if you want to. But if down gets wet, it's useless. It's completely useless. But in the other type is oh geez, Tom Martin, what's the other type? Not down.
Synthetic.
Thank you. You at least can get some warmth of it. But here's the thing about winter camping, even whether you're hot tenting or cold camping, you're going to put this thing on like this, right? Like you're going to zip it up like that, and you're going to start breathing, and that breath is going to get everything wet. So put a balaclava or wool balaclava around you, or just try to keep the hood off and put a hat on, because really your whole sleeping bag around the head is going to get all moist.
Right. So let's get into before we get into like totally winter dedicated gear. What gear for summer camping could be also used for summer or for winter camping? Like I'm thinking like maybe an MSR stove or a twig stove type of thing, or your pots and pans. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, the kettle. I use this all the time, right? But I generally use it a lot more in the winter for boil up. But yeah, you can use this in the summer as well. But really, honest to God, I did my equipment switch this week, and it's almost completely switched. Your camp kitchen's probably the same, but mind you, I use a Dutch oven in my hot tent, so I bring that out for the winter. No, it's a totally different thing. It's all a seasonal thing. Like, I'm not going to bring my bug shelter.
Yeah, I guess not, right? Martin, what do you think? Let's talk a bit about gear there.
Yeah, there's not all that much gear that you're going to use year round. I mean, your cook kit probably will serve you in winter. If you're using something like an alcohol stove, that doesn't work as well in really, really low temperatures. It can be harder to ignite. You might have to, pre-warm and prime your stove up, depending on what kind it is. So you might want to think if you're looking to buy a stove and with a view to it serving you in winter as well as summer, that not all fuels work alike. So do a bit of homework on that. I actually do use an alcoholic quick stove a lot of the time because I like to camp in snow shelters sometimes. I'll build igloos or quinzees, and you can, if they're properly ventilated, safely use those inside a snow shelter. If I'm hot tenting, well, then my cook kit is really different because now I can cook more elaborate meals because I'm not backpacking in, I'm not portaging in, I'm hauling everything on a sled or a toboggan, right, on some kind of pulk. So I can haul more gear in. So my cook kit can be more elaborate. I can bring different kinds of foods. I don't have to bring only dehydrated food because nothing's going to spoil out there. So you can bring fresher foods. Really, there isn't all that much that transfers over. Your cook kit might. It just depends on how much you want to eat the way you and prepare your food the way you would in summer. But some things are going to change. You're going to bring more clothes. It's going to be bigger clothes. Your sleeping bag, as Kevin said, is going to be considerably bigger. Or you're going to have to double up and bring 2 sleeping bags to nest one inside the other. That's going to take up more volume. You need a bigger pack. You probably don't even want to pack in winter. Do you really want to go snowshoeing or skiing with a big backpack on? You're going to sink in deeper, right? Now you're going to need a sled, right? So maybe a big hockey duffel bag will do, or something like that. I used one of those for years when I was igloo camping, for instance. So your gear is going to be more voluminous, and your clothes is going to be heavier. Your sleeping bag is going to be heavier. You're going to let the snow do the lifting by hauling it around, but you need your sort of narrow, tall backpack. The backpack's not going to do the trick. Similarly, your tent is going to be bigger and heavier. A typical summer tent usually has too much mesh and doesn't trap enough heat, and it probably won't have enough venting ports and zippers and things like that. A winter tent has to be more sturdily constructed, usually with more poles and reinforcement to hold up against snow. If wet snow starts to land on it during the day or during the night, you don't want your tent to collapse on you. So a winter tent tends to be more sturdily built. The fly is sort of more comprehensive. It's got more vents to let moisture get expressed from inside. All of that is a different tent. It's a bigger tent. It's a heavier tent. Takes up more room in your pack or your duffel bag or whatever it is you're using to haul in. So all kinds of things are going to change. And of course, your clothing is going to change. You're going to bring different clothing, and it's going to weigh more.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, for sure. I just want to state, everybody, if you see me sort of roboting.
Oh, you just froze.
I've been instructed that if I happen to duck out or something because my internet.
Oh.
This is the time, guys. Let's take over his show.
Yeah, it's odd. I don't know what's going on with my internet. I'm hardwired here and everything, so I apologize to everybody. I'm just going to pop up a quick question here from Outdoor Therapy asking, let's get out there, synthetic or down insulation, which one do you guys prefer?
Short term, I would go with down. Long term, if you're going to be out there for a long stay, synthetic, because your sleeping bag, unless you're in a hot tent, where you can dry it out very, very thoroughly, your sleeping bag will absorb moisture. So people who go mountaineering, for instance, they like things that are small, light, and compact. So you'd think they'd all go for down, but mountaineering excursions take a long time very often, and they know they are going to accumulate moisture in their sleeping bag, and they have no way to dry out their bag. So they tend to go with synthetic because it maintains its loft and maintains its insulated properties much better. So on shorter trips, a week and under, I would go down all the way. Longer trips, especially in very remote areas where you could get into trouble and you absolutely need that place to crawl into in the event of an emergency or something going wrong, I would go with synthetic. But for the reasons that Kevin gave, it's light, it's compact, it keeps you really, really warm. I love down, so that's and mine's a -40 bag, and it cost about $1,000.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, and how about you, Kevin? Well, you know what? Let's ask John. John, what do you prefer?
Down. The new down is treated down, so it repels moisture to some degree. It's warmer. You can pack it down smaller. What I do while we have props out here. So this is an Enlightened equipment bag. This is a quilt, actually. What I do with this is we're talking about the kind of the overplay between summer and winter and difference. So this is my summer bag. This is a 30-degree Fahrenheit bag. All right, so just about freezing. It's comfortable in summer. What I do with this is I've got this, and then I double it up with a 0-degree quilt, which takes me with 0-degree Fahrenheit. And so between the two of those, I can get down between -10 and -20 Fahrenheit when I add them up. The other thing I'll do, and if we're talking about down, here's the thing, because even though it's treated, I'll take this is a Sea to Summit silk liner. This is good for, probably 10 degrees as well. But I'll use this all the time, summer or winter, because for like oils off your body or whatever. That way you don't have to keep washing the down quilts or down bags, because that's, that can be a problem. The thing with these is, the thing that I love about this system is I'm not spending, a lot of money on one bag. I'm spending a decent amount of money on 2 quilts. So I've got what I think is a pretty good range of temperatures that I can go through. Basically, this will get me until it gets really cold for a cold tent. Now this will get me all year. Now in a hot tent, that's a different thing, right? That's a different thing. So, but down for me.
Tent there. So, sorry, I think I froze up again. No. No. Okay. No. Okay. You guys are so still. I have a hard time seeing. You just got to keep moving your heads around so I know that where I'm not frozen up. Right. There you go. Yeah. So I see a lot of questions coming in. We'll get to a section of the show where because there's a lot of different things we could do there. But I want to ask Nate, working in a retail situation like you do, what do you find people come looking for more, synthetics or the downfill?
You know what? For the most part, it's down that people come looking for because of its reputation. And down will lead the query by reputation and then often be relegated to synthetic based on price.
Right.
So down costs more, but of course, its value, usually kind of balances out the cost.
Yep.
But synthetic is generally speaking more, more economical and more robust. So for most, kind of those kind of July, August campers, a synthetic bag is all they're really going to be needing or wanting. Just, based on cost and the time of year they're using it. For that 3-season camper, they're usually going to be going out a lot more than just in July and August, and so they're willing to invest a little bit of money in a down bag, and that's where you get into kind of the whole temperature range that down bags come in, and what's the best one for when you're going out. I'm somewhere kind of in the middle. I have a zippered down quilt. That basically just kind of forms a giant rectangle bag when it's zippered together, and it's rated till about -4. And when I was out last winter with Martin, all I used was that and then a wool blanket, actually, and which was totally adequate. So it really, like John, I definitely have kind of a system based on when I'm going out and the temperature that that I'm expected to encounter. But yeah, down if you're reasonably good at taking care of your gear, and if you're going to be dragging a polka or a sled across the terrain to go winter camping, and your equipment's going to be in a waterproof bag of some sort, then a down bag is a good choice, because again, generally speaking, it's going to have a higher warmth to weight ratio than synthetic, and it's going to pack smaller as well.
Mm-hmm. And right along the same whole topic there, seeing as you brought up wool. Now this wool pants are synthetic. Now this could even relate to sleepwear or clothing. What about the wool versus synthetic argument for clothing or sleeping systems?
The other part that everyone's forgetting about down, of course, is the value of a down puffy for warming up really quick if you're out there. And so everyone equates this conversation with a down sleeping bag, but I find the value of a really packable down kind of mid-layer to be really valuable because it packs down so small. It has a really good warmth to weight ratio for what it is, and something like that is really good to be able to throw on if you're starting to get a chill, because it reciprocates your body heat very effectively, and it has really good thermal value. For as far as layers go, yeah, between synthetic and wool, it's got to be merino wool all the time. Is my vote. I know Patagonia does a really good job with Callan, and there's some really good synthetics as far as base layers go that are out there. But I think it's taken a number of years, but I think everyone's kind of on the same plane now as far as the value of good merino wool.
Yeah, there's one thing about merino wool that people don't appreciate. Well, first of all, it's not itchy the way people imagine wool. The way a wool jacket like this is going to be itchy, or your old wool cardigan is itchy. Merino wool is really soft. It's incredible. It doesn't feel like wool, really. You have to sort of know what it feels like. You'd mistake it for a cotton or a synthetic or something like that. Wool would not spring to mind when you see merino wool when you first touch it. So I use merino wool for my base layer. My underwear, my long underwear, and a long sleeve undershirt is what I use. And there's all kinds of brands. Companies like MEC have their own. Icebreaker makes some. I've tried both of those. I'm happy with both of those. But the real thing that's interesting about a merino wool base layer over synthetic is synthetics tend to stink. They tend to reek once you start to sweat in them. After a few days in your base layer, terrible. And you're stinking up your sleeping bag, and you're just driving your partner crazy if you happen to be in a small tent or something like that. Merino wool doesn't trap odor. It's miraculous. It's incredible. And for a long time, people just thought, oh yeah, you're just gonna stink like sweaty gym shoes or something like that when you're camping in winter, because you're going to wear this synthetic base layer. And everyone just thought that's the reality of winter camping. But lo and behold, merino wool comes along, and those days are gone. So yeah, that alone, it makes it worth the price. Oh, and the thing about your base layer getting stinky, once it starts getting stinky, no amount of washing gets the stink out. Those stains stay, and as soon as you put it on, in an hour, it starts to stink again.
It's kind of like
out of the laundry.
So
what's that?
It's kind of like hockey breezers.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a product that you can use. It's got live enzymes in it, and you mix that in there, and it will take out some of that smell. It's a lot of people use it for like neoprene wetsuits and such, because same thing, right? That buildup can reek.
So a lot of people, people should know the differentiation between regular wool and merino wool. Merino wool comes from a totally different breed of sheep than regular wool, which are found in New Zealand. And the reason why it's so valued for that wool is because it's an extremely fine fiber compared to other natural fibers and other wools. And that species of sheep has evolved in that way because New Zealand, like us, gets hot in the summer and cold in the winter. And so those sheep have managed to grow a wool that basically keeps them cool in the summer and warm in the winter, even though it's the same type of wool. And yes, it's naturally antimicrobial, it's antibacterial. The fiber is so fine that sweat molecules and bacteria cannot adhere to that fiber. So yes, you pay exponentially more for it than you would for a synthetic base layer. But as Martin is kind of alluding to there, it's worth its weight in gold, and you can wear it for exponentially longer than you would a normal kind of synthetic base layer. And at the end of your camping trip, you are not going to stink, basically.
Yeah. And Sue Shepard is right. It is very expensive. My very first merino wool zip sweater, I wear on every single trip, and I will be buried in that sweater. It was a lot of money, and I was sort of like questioning my whole insanity when I was doing it. But I think I bought it in the early 2000s, and I wear it all the time. So it lasts. Whereas you'll buy something and it'll last a couple of years, and then you'll just go to Valley Village, whatever. So with it, so yeah.
the expression "cry only once."
Yeah.
Right?
See, we got a comment here from Adventures with Josie. She says she can't even wear merino wool. Well, I'm not sure why, but I myself have an allergy to wool. Okay,
So-
or I break out like a light set of hives type of thing, right? And then I know wool is itchy to begin with. I understand merino wool is not quite as itchy, but I get itchy, right? So I'm just wondering. I've never tried merino wool because of the whole factor that they say. Well, because I'm allergic to wool. So I'm wondering if I should just give the stuff a try, if it'll make a difference, or if I should go with another alternative, which would be alpaca.
Well, Dennis, what you should try is try merino wool, but in something that's not going to be quite as much of an investment as a top or a bottom base layer, such as wrist gaiters or a toque or socks, something that has a high merino content to just see how your skin reacts to it. There are people who, doesn't matter what kind of wool it is, their skin just has a reaction to it. Doesn't matter how fine that fiber is. There's something there that's just not reacting well with their skin. And yeah, those people basically they're going to need to try an alternative natural fiber or go to synthetic. But for a lot of people that associate wool with that itchy sweater that your grandma made you, you really need to try something in merino, but maybe not at quite high of an investment until you know it's going to work for you. But for most people, yeah, that investment or that dive into merino wool pays off, because not only are you going to use it in December and January and February when you're winter camping, but you're also quite likely going to use the exact same piece when you're camping for the rest of the year as well, because it is so versatile, so breathable, really good thermal value, and it helps regulate your temperature the entire time you're wearing it as well. But yeah, start off small, make sure it's going to work for you. And yeah, if you are going to have a reaction to it, then unfortunately, that's the way it is, and you're going to, find something else that works for you.
I might have to try that.
When I'm traveling in really cold temperatures, and not damp temperatures, but really cold, dry temperatures, like minus 30, so I'll base layer with merino wool, and then I'll wear, this is a windbreaker, right? The anorak idea, the canvas, the same idea that your tent's made out of, and that makes it a great windbreaker, and you can breathe through it as well. You breathe, whereas you're wearing a Gore-Tex jacket that you spend a fortune on, and it doesn't matter what they say, you're going to sweat in that, right? So I don't sweat in that. But when I get to camp, though, and I'm got to get warmed up because the stove's not going yet or the fire's not going yet, I do bring a puffy, down puffy, and that's my backup. That's sort of my sort of safety net. So if I'm getting the real bad chills and my wool is sort of damp from the day and I haven't shooken off the ice crystals and dried it up nice, I'll put the puffy on.
Mm-hmm. Can anybody answer this? Are the merino wool blends any good? Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so merino blends can be good. It just depends on what they're going to be blended with. So oftentimes merino wool will have to be blended with something that allows it to stretch, so that you can pull it on over your head, and so that your wrists will stay around your wrists and not start to droop down over your hands or something like that. But I would say the more polyester that you add to that blend, the less the less desirable the effects of the merino are going to be. So it's a great way to bring down the cost of a base layer, because you can then put merino wool on the label. But the more you blend it with a synthetic material, the less quality the effects of the merino are going to have. So again, you're going to start to get that smell. It's not going to manage your temperature quite as well, and it's not going to wick moisture away quite as naturally as merino wool. The other big thing too, especially for winter camping, where we're dealing with stoves, etc., indoors or inside the tent, and this hasn't been mentioned yet, but merino wool or wool in general is actually naturally fire retardant. So you get an ember from something drops onto your garment. It is not going to light you up like a bunch of fireworks. So if anybody's had an ember drop onto them while they're wearing polar fleece, they know exactly what I'm talking about, where all of a sudden it just feels like you've got napalm burning into your arm. Yeah. Merino wool will actually kind of dampen that ember or that flame or that match or whatever it is that happens to drop onto you. So the higher the content the merino wool is on that label, the better it's going to function for what you're actually buying it for, which is why you're looking for the merino in the first place.
I wonder if I could say another thing about wool clothing, one of its advantages that we haven't sort of said explicitly, and that's that it breathes. Synthetics tend to keep you warm by trapping your body heat inside you, but that means it traps your moisture, right? And that moisture will accumulate. And so you end up slowly getting wet, because when you're snowshoeing and hauling a sled or a toboggan or a puck behind you, or if you've got a backpack on, even worse, your back and you're just going to get sweaty all over. Your feet are going to get sweaty. Your crotch is going to get sweaty. Your back's going to get sweaty. Your armpits are going to get sweaty. You're going to be in a sweat, and it's cold enough that you're not necessarily going to feel hot. So you're not going to feel that you're getting wet. And then you get to camp, and now you're not straining so much, and your body temperature starts to drop, and it starts to get cool because the days are short, and by 4:30 it's getting pretty darn dark, and it sunsets, or at least around here. So you start to get really cold because now you are just wet and clammy. And how are you going to dry yourself out, right? I mean, people have these ideas about, I'll just build a fire. You need a huge fire, and it needs to be really hot enough that you can't stand close enough because it'll burn you. And then only then can you sort of put clothes over it and near it, and have it dry out, right? And of course, you don't want synthetics anywhere near a fire like that, right? The advantage of wool is that it breathes, right? Moisture gets expressed. And so when I go out winter camping, I'll wear, the base layer. I'll have merino wool underwear, long underwear, a base layer top, wool socks, 1 or 2 pairs depending on what I'm wearing as footwear. I'll have wool felt liners inside my pack boots, and then I'll have wool pants, heavy, fairly tight, tightly woven wool pants, a wool shirt like this. I might have a wool sweater. I have a wool hat, and I have wool gloves. I'm a wool fanatic, but all of this clothes is bought a little larger than I would, because I want it to be loose. I do not want it to be tight-fitting that'll hold moisture in. I want the moisture to be expressed so that when I walk and I'm snowshoeing, I'm holding trekking poles, or if I'm doing any work or I'm sawing wood or whatever it is I'm doing, I want my clothes to puff out and come in and out and act like a bellows and force that moisture out. And your outer layer on a really cold day, your outer layer, the moisture will literally freeze. You'll get this white little dust frozen on the outside layer of your clothing. If snow is landing and melting on your garments, you're not insulated enough, right? Your heat is being expressed to the outer layer of your clothing. You're losing all that heat, right? When you wear wool, snow will land on you and it won't melt into you because the outer layer is cold and you're dry inside. So that's the real advantage of wool, is that, oh yeah, okay, it doesn't pack down real small. It's kind of bulky and it's not cheap and it's not always easy to find. But boy, it keeps you dry. And because it keeps you dry, it keeps you warm. Keeping warm in winter is 90% of it is moisture control. If you can stay dry, you will stay warm.
Yeah, you know what? In doing research for this show, I actually reverted to my show from last season when we talked about winter camping as well, and you brought up that same piece of advice, Martin. And it's true. It makes sense. And everybody's had that where, you have that puffy feeling and you feel that warm puff of air coming up your neck or back of your neck or down your back or something. And that, like Martin says, that's a good thing. You want to be expelling that moisture. So that's a good thing. The fellas over at Paddling Adventures Radio had a quick question too. He says, everybody seems to praise wool and merino wool. What are the cons to wool?
I wouldn't answer that question. Those guys are terrible. Terrible human beings. Don't even talk to them. Moving right on.
Who would know better than you, right?
Well, here's 2 cons. It's hard to find. No, not base layer. I mean, that's really common now. And a wool shirt like this or a wool sweater is tolerably easy to find. And you can find a lot of wool in secondhand stores so that it's not too expensive. And that's where I got a lot of my wool. But things like wool pants or a wool jacket are really bloody expensive, really expensive. And you have to hunt for them because most stores will not carry it. Like most of the outdoor stores, MEC and REI and Sale and all of those places, they tend to sort of cater to outdoor urban fashions. Sleek, tight, clingy clothes that looks good walking downtown and on a hiking trail and a groomed trail or something like that. But when you have to live in the woods and you can't just take your clothes off and dry it inside the chalet or in a house or something like that, you have to go and sleep in a tent. Your clothes is wet, you're in trouble. So it's worth the price, and it's worth hunting. It actually took me a few years to accumulate all the wool garments that I now have. I shot sales. I went into Goodwill. I went into Salvation Army. Every used discount place I could find. Army Surplus sometimes has good wool pants. And make sure they're baggy. They have to be baggy. And if you're wearing wool over top of wool, it binds to itself. So your outer layer has to be way bigger. This jacket is way too big for me. This jacket would probably fit Nate. He's a much bigger guy than I am. But it's deliberately big so I can wear a lighter wool shirt underneath atop of a merino wool layer. And my wool jacket is even bigger still, fits over top of that. So make your clothes, if you're going to get wool, make it baggy so that it acts like a bellows and expresses itself. But that's two big cons. It's expensive and it's not easy to find.
Well, you think about that too. Like, this is like this was my gift to myself. I actually took a side job just to pay for this. It was $600. So this is a Filson forestry jacket, and I worked in forestry, right? So Martin, I think when you and I were out, I was wearing it. You had similar, and there's even a pocket in the back to put your map in because that's what a forester would do. And yeah, it's really expensive. That's insane. I've never spent. I don't make a lot of money. $600. So I had to take a side job, and I got it. But oh man, do I look good in it?
Go ahead, model it for us, Kevin.
Tell you, it's the moment I put it on,
and then you got to do a camera shot of around you because I want to see how much gear you got spread all around you.
It's bad, actually. Look at. Oh, I hope Christine's not watching. She's going to say, "Oh, it's such a mess." All right, here we go. Look at that. Like,
oh, you look good in that.
All right. Too hot.
So Nate, you being the gear guy, there again, do you Algonquin Outfitters, do they carry a lot of wool products or?
I would say we are doing a better and better job of carrying wool base layers and mid layers. We carry Icebreaker, we carry Smart Wool, we carry Wool Power, and we carry a number of brands that make a pretty heavy blend, such as Helly Hansen, and even Burton. And there's a number of ski and snowboard brands that are kind of catching on to the merino wool thing. As far as wool outer layers, such as the kind of coat that Kevin's wearing and the kind of pants that Martin is talking about, that gets a little trickier because the cost goes up a lot, and outdoor wear companies have done a really, really good job in selling us a lot of tech. So people associate outdoor performance with a lot of stuff like Gore-Tex or stretchy lightweight materials that if you're being oh my god. So if you're out for that trail run or you're out for that 3-hour hike in a park in a light drizzle, you're covered. But when you start to show somebody a $400 wool coat and you compare that to a $400 Gore-Tex piece, I think we've all been kind of trained one way or another to look at that Gore-Tex piece as having more kind of performance value until you actually start to educate yourself a lot more, like what we're doing right now, talking about winter camping gear. But it's we'd like to get more into that, but there is definitely kind of a cost hurdle and a mental hurdle for a lot of people walking in that associate certain materials with the kind of performance they're looking for versus kind of a much more traditional aesthetic and material for a more kind of focused outdoor activity like winter camping.
Interesting. Interesting.
Actually, this light wool jacket, I bought at Algonquin Outfitters actually, and it's excellent. And it's a wool rich jacket. I don't know if you still carry those, but I mean, I waited a long time for this one to sort of drop in price a little bit at the end of the season. So, most of the wool that I got after winter when prices of these things came down. In winter or in autumn, you're probably going to pay a little more for them.
I think,
And if you do buy, one last thing, if you do buy like a wool jacket, make sure it doesn't have a lining. Very often they have a cotton or synthetic lining, and that nullifies the effect of wool, of being able to vent out moisture. So if you're going to buy a jacket and it's got a nice, smooth satiny lining inside that makes it comfortable to wear and it slides over your other clothing, that's all great. But when you go camping, you're going to need that lining out of there. You're going to want to cut that out or buy something else. What's that?
Can you just turn it inside out?
No, because there's still going to be that barrier there, whether it's close to your skin or away from your skin. There's still going to be a barrier there.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into a little bit about shelters. I've been seeing a lot of questions and cues in the live chat over there about shelters. There are so many different shelters. All the rage now is getting to be the hot tent. There's cold tenting. There's hammocks. There's natural shelters like igloos, quincies. You can do, survival shelter type of things. You can rent a yurt. You can camp in the back of your trailer or the back of your truck for that matter. Kevin, I know you're prone to, well, wait a second. Let's start with John, because John, you're actually inside of a hot tent now.
I am.
You're inside of a snow trekker?
Yeah, this is a snow trekker short wall, 9 by 11.5 feet. It's, I love it. This is my first hot tent. I got it last fall. I've been a cold tenter, and I am kind of sold on this. And I think as somebody, as we get older too, the hot tents seem nicer and nicer. But I'm originally a cold tent guy. So I had a couple of, had a big Agnes that I really like, 4-season copper spur expedition tent, and really nice. In a lot of these, they'll hold. So you have your sleep system, right? And then because there's not as much mesh, it was like what Martin was saying earlier. It's more fabric, and you have the ability to change things up a little bit with vents. But you'll hold a good at least 10 degrees in the tent as well. So if you're worried about 10 Fahrenheit, if you're worried about what it is outside, you figure that tent is going to give you an extra 10 degrees only. Right. And that's one of the benefits of a 4-season tent. And again, there's the heavier construction, the heavier fabric, the pole set's heavier. For people starting out, though, one thing you could do for most of the people that will be watching this, right, sort of in the upper Midwest of the U.S. and across Ontario, not maybe when you're getting really far up north and, Alberta and such. But for a lot of people, you can take a good 3-season tent, take it out, take a tarp with you, drop that tarp between 2 trees, make sure it's taut, and keep that above it. So if you get that heavy snowfall, it takes some of the weight off, of what would be on your tent. So there's little tricks like that you can do, so you can kind of move into it without spending a horrendous amount of money, right? And so I think there's things you can do to extend it. I think to do it safely, there's always the thing, start in the backyard, then go to a provincial or a state park or something like that where you can drive in and car camp. Then you have that safety factor. I know Joe Stromsky, who has been writing over on, the Joe Strom, and I see something up there now, but he's been offering a lot of good tips over there. He talks about that a lot too, about doing it in stages. And I think that's easy to do, particularly with cold tents, right? You can make sure that your gear will set for it. And then as you start getting better gear and going farther afield, 2 things that should go together, you can do that. And then for me, this is sort of the ultimate, the hot tent. I don't have a stove hooked up in here right now, but you can take this out, and when you're getting out in those negative 30s, negative 40s, when you get that Fahrenheit Celsius crossover, you can weather that pretty well in these,
John, did you put that in your living room? Open the door. Let me see what's behind you.
Hey, I am in the central Wisconsin Highlands.
So you're actually outdoors?
I'm outside. Yeah. No, this isn't my garage or living room. No.
Okay.
We had somebody else earlier in the chat that had asked a similar question to this. Despite the weight issue, what are the pros and cons of canvas versus the sil nylon? If you go on, the Amazons and places like that, you're going to find all kinds of, like, One Tigers has a bunch of for like hot stoving tent or hot tents, and there's all these new nylon tents. Has anybody ever weighed the pros and cons, like one versus the other? Has anybody tried the nylon ones?
Yeah, I stayed in one last year, one of the sil nylon ones.
Yeah.
And then I went and I was a guest in Martin's tent, which is, I believe, a snow trekker. And the difference in temperature retention, heat retention, was unbelievable. And this was a fairly good quality sil nylon tent. And still I found, the difference in having to kind of either maintain a fire or let the fire go out and then see how quickly the temperature dropped.
Mm-hmm.
That snow trekker canvas, the cotton canvas tent, retained far more heat than that sil nylon tent, and there was far less condensation buildup on the inside of the tent.
Yeah.
So the heat retention, why would that be, do you think? Is because maybe the cotton canvas is a little more porous, perhaps?
I would think so. Yeah, there was a noticeable difference, and it was within 2 weeks. I think it was within about 2 weeks time for me trying the sil nylon tent and then the snow staying in the snow trekker, and the temperature was pretty much the same, and the difference was pretty substantial in how warm I was inside that canvas tent and how how kind of cool I was in that sil nylon tent.
Right.
Yeah, I find it's a regional thing, a cultural thing. If you're living in the States where you don't have a really harsh winter in some of those states, especially in the southern parts, desert, whatever, you're going to get a lot of nylon tents and a lot of stick stoves, or not stoves, sorry, a lot of stoves to use. But if you're up in Lake Superior and -40 and you're using one of those nylon tents, it's not culturally significant. Like you'll freeze. So and the condensation will form, like Nate was talking about. It's not made for that type of area. A canvas can't freeze. It's really good for wind protection. So is nylon. A lot of people also do about safety too. I mean, when nylon burns and melts, it doesn't burn. Whereas canvas, actually, if it ignites, it's not going to burn. It's actually because it has fire retardant embedded. Well, probably the nylon tents do as well. So I'm not an expert on that. But I just would find myself a lot more protective in a canvas tent than actually a nylon tent. I'm probably wrong saying that. So that's just my comfort zone. So,
Show us again, John.
Nope. Here I'm moving around here.
Fire extinguisher.
Yeah. So if you got a stove going, it's a really good idea just in case mistakes happen. I think the other thing for people that are out hot tenting, or because this is something, like I say, new for me, right? I'm a hot tent noob. It's been about a year. You're more likely, when you take out your good first aid kit, right? You always want to take a good first aid kit. But one thing you may want to do for the hot tent, aloe vera or burn gel, or people will burn themselves. That's probably the number one kind of injury when you're out winter camping, hot tenting. Really easy, right? So take some aloe vera with you too. Just a couple of things to throw in the hot tent.
The hot tent dangerous stuff we really should cover. Am I echoing? Am I okay?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I'll back up.
Dennis, don't you have an 8 p.m. thing to do?
I do, but the question I was going to ask is hasn't been covered yet. So, but you know what? We could do it as a research thing. Okay, we'll finish talking a bit more about the shelters here.
Yeah, just go over safety stuff because so many people are paranoid about these hot tents. And I think he's out too. And a lot of the instructors or administrators are saying, no, you can't take them out in a heated structure. And it just boggles the imagination, right? A couple years ago, I took some out, volunteered, and they couldn't stay in a heated structure. So they stayed in their cold tents. But then once it went past -20, legally we had to wake them up every 20 minutes to make sure they weren't dead. And what this is stupid, guys. Like, so here's the dangers. Yes, the tent can burn, most likely because of a candle against the wall. That's happened more so than actually the fire itself. But in Canada, I don't know about the United States, but in Canada, by law, that canvas has to have fire retardant in it, or it's not allowed to be sold in Canada or be in Canada. So if it ignites, it's not going to ignite; it's going to smolder. Okay. And the other is carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide could happen in theory. You're lying in the tent, the stove goes out or goes to embers, wind goes down the pipe, goes over the embers, and creates carbon monoxide poisoning. Canvas is ventilated; it breathes. You have breathe holes on both ends. I opened my front flap a bit. Yeah, just like that, John. So, and I might be wrong here, but I've never heard of, and I did a lot of research when I was working on the winter book. Nobody that I know has ever died of carbon monoxide. If that's an issue, just bring a battery operated carbon monoxide detector, problem solved, right? Yeah. The other thing, though, too, is, and this is really important, put gear outside the tent. So if that tent does burn and it's minus 40, you got gear to survive the night so you can haul out. And what I do is I always bring a neck knife, okay? Because you're sleeping with that neck knife, and if you need to get out really quickly, it's not the front door, because that's where the stove is, okay? And that's where the fire started. So you need to cut that canvas open and get the heck out of there. So those are the sort of things. Make sure you have a first aid kit out there. Make sure you have a bivvy. Make sure you have a shelter, fire starter outside the tent in case that happens. With that said, I think one of the most dangerous things is when someone has to get up to pee. They get up and they get all wobbly, even if they're not drinking whiskey, and then they put their hand down on the stove because they think they're going to fall. I can see that probably being one of the worst things that could happen.
Yeah.
There's been two kind of comments / questions that I think are really important to address. One is about cold tenting, and I think it's important that everyone should know that you shouldn't be using your regular isobutane or liquid fuel stove inside your tent if you're cold tenting. So while it may feel nice and warm at the time, that's emitting a lot of stuff you don't want inside of your tent. So use it just outside in the vestibule. And then the second one is it gets really appealing this time of year because you see all these really good deals on propane heaters at Canadian Tire and Home Depot and Princess Auto, and people have all these. And I get asked all the time, "Well, can I just grab one of those, heater buddies and stick it inside my North Face tent?" Kevin?
Really?
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I'm not going to bring anything that involves combustion into a cold tent. I don't even let the fire go in my stove in my hot tent. I sleep cold. So I sort of, this used to be sort of a majority traditional opinion. With the increasing popularity of hot tenting, I think I'm sort of becoming a minority here, but I'm sort of old school on this. I am of the view that you should sleep cold for two reasons. You eliminate the danger of burning yourself in the night by stumbling around because you got to go out to pee. You avoid the problem of partial combustion in your stove overnight as the coals start to go out and a cold draft coming in and blowing a lot of poisonous gas your way. You avoid all of that. And you avoid the problem of having to get up every couple of hours and add fuel to the fire or stoke the fire. I like to sleep at night, and I sleep right through, and that's because I have a sleep system that will get me through the night. And so the ultimate concern is this: supposing something happens, there's a fire, something disastrous goes wrong with your stove. You step on a stovepipe and you crush it, and you can't get your stove working and stuff like that. How are you going to get through the night? When you're winter camping, you have to have a sleep system with you that will get you through the night with no shelter, right? With no tent. You have to have something, a bivy bag, a tarp to put over you, a Mylar sheet to put under your sleeping bag, and a sleeping bag or one sleeping bag nested inside the other that'll get you through the night. You don't have to be comfortable. You just have to survive. The nights are long, and they can be deadly cold. And so, you have to have some system that will get you through the night. So I don't rely on any heating source at night for sleeping. Nate and I went camping together last year, and we slept cold. I don't think he had any problem. As you said, you had a sort of a fairly light sleeping bag and a wool blanket. And the temperature inside the hot tent at night is about the same temperature as the outdoors. So it's not appreciably warmer, right? I mean, you're cutting the wind, but you're not cutting the temperature down. You're just cutting out the windshield, right? But your sleep system, your clothing, your insulation from the ground, whether it's boughs or insulated pad or something, right? Air mattress with downfill or whatever it is, and your sleeping bag. That should be what gets you through the night. And the advantage of that is complete peace of mind in the event of a catastrophe. You sleep. You get to actually sleep. You don't have to get up and feed the fire. I know lots of people who go hot tenting, and they are wrecked every morning. And it's hard to keep warm during the day when you haven't slept properly at night. You know, after 2-3 nights, it really starts to work on you, and it's hard to your body can't generate any heat unless you're getting fed, unless you're getting sleep, and unless you're properly hydrated. You can't thermoregulate. So I like to sleep. So I'm kind of hard line on this. I always recommend, without exception, learn to sleep cold. If you can't sleep cold, you shouldn't be winter camping. You have to be able to sleep cold. And I learned this. I mean, I'm sort of new to hot tenting. I've only been doing it for a few years. I learned this because most of my life, I didn't go cold tenting. I camped in snow shelters, igloos, and quinzees. And you have to learn how to sleep cold. Now, the advantage of those structures, snow structures, is that they are heat traps, way better than any tent. Right? They trap heat super, super well. I've never had a water bottle freeze in an igloo. Never. And it didn't matter what the temperature was outside. The insulative quality of a snow shelter is that great, that much better than a tent. But consequently, I had to have a shelter that would keep me warm and a sleep system that would let me get right through the night with no option of a fire. You can't make a fire inside of a snow shelter. You can't have a stove inside of a snow shelter, right? Nothing's going to keep you warm in a snow shelter except your sleep system. So I feel fairly strongly about this. I think just as a matter of, since we're talking safety and we're talking shelters, I think choose whatever style of camping you want, cold tenting, snow shelters, or hot tents, but have a sleep system that will get you through the night, not necessarily comfortably, but will get you through the night without having to get up to feed a fire and run the risk of, setting fire to it.
Yeah. So I see John over there playing with something. What do you got there, John?
This is something I wanted to mention before, and Martin just kind of went into this a little bit when he was talking sleep system. So we talked before about the bags and the value of, temperature ratings and et cetera, right? But you have to be sure that you've got good insulation between you and the ground. Because if you don't, it really doesn't matter what you have on top of you, you're going to get cold. So what I do is depending on how I'm camping. So like if it's backcountry, I'll do a 2-prong system like this, where I'll use one of these foam reflective. This is the Nemo switchback. And then I've got an old combination air and foam thermarest. This is 30 years old. I'll use these two together as the base. And if I'm car camping, I'll either use these two together and a wool blanket on as well, even if it's really cold. And this seems to work well. I also have a larger, I don't have it out here with me, but I have a larger thermarest that's foam plus down on it as well. And that's nice to use too. But I think that's one thing that, we hadn't talked about before we were talking about bags. It's that sleep system thing. You've got to have something underneath. The first time I took out my quilts, because I was curious, because the quilts, as they come down to where the pad is, are they going to leak too much air, etc. So I went out and it was, I think it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit. I thought this would be just a good test, right? I got out and I just took out the zero bag. I didn't take or the zero quilt. I didn't take the other one with it, just to try the one. And I was fine with that. But what I found was my pads were not working. And so the one pad alone didn't do it. So that's when I picked up this Nemo, slide that under there, and it's fantastic. So yeah, it's that, we think layers, right? We talk about layers with clothing and such. We should think about that too with our sleep system.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to add to what John said, the one piece of gear that I will frequently use in the summer that can totally translate over to winter camping is a piece of gear that most people start out with when they're camping, is that blue foam pad.
Yep.
And that can provide you with a ton of insulation from the ground against the rest of your sleep system. And even though it doesn't weigh much, it's worth its weight in gold for the bulk of it to drag out there with you, because the insulative quality is fantastic. And it costs, I mean, how much, even your fancy Nemo one, John, how much did that actually set you back?
I want to say $50-$60 maybe.
Yeah.
And
I remember the closed cell foam pads used to be like $7-8, and now maybe they've realized their value, and poof, up they've gone in price, but they're still a cheaper carry for sure. Okay, so we're going to touch a bit more on shelters, because there's still a lot of things that we're going to talk about there. I see somebody's asking about hammocks. We want to talk about natural shelters. Martin could really fill us in on igloos and stuff like that. But I'm going to get to the question for tonight's swag giveaway. The answer hasn't come out yet, but we'll see how many people actually know the answer. And the answer will probably come out later in the stream. So what we usually do for our swag giveaway is I'm going to show you what I've got. When I ask the question, and I'll put it across the bottom of the screen, please do not put the answer in the chat. Okay, let's make people work for this. But what I need you to do is send your answers to my email address. I'll put that in a second. So tonight's swag giveaway, we got a whole bunch of stuff going on here tonight. Going to start with some Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show decals. These go great on your bottles, your lunch pail, your whatever you want to put them on. I've got 2 of the new embroidered Canoe Hound Adventure and Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show patches. They're iron-on patches. They go on your clothing very nice. I've got a Canoe Hound Adventures t-shirt, just like the one I'm wearing. This is a men's large. That's all I got left is men's larges, so you have to settle for that, whoever wins. From our friends over at Great Signs and Graphics, got a nice 2021 North American Wildlife calendar, so that can go on your wall. And we've also got, from the fellas over at Kid Products, we've got a very cool fire striker. It's one of the ones that's in an aluminum tube. Comes out, there's your fire striker, there's your scraper there, and that'll be in the package as well. So all that stuff is going to be going to one lucky winner. And tonight's question is, and let me get it up on screen. No, not wrong one. Let's try this one. What is the name of the popular campgrounds on Highway 60 in Algonquin Park that's open year-round for camping? Many of you will know it. If you don't know, because you're not from the Algonquin Park area or you've never been there, the answer will be coming out a little later. If not, I will drop a few. You please send the answer to my email address, which is COAS, that's Canoe Hound Outdoor Adventure Show, prize@gmail.com. And it's going across the bottom of the screen. So it's COAS prize@gmail.com. Send the answer. You have until Saturday at 11 o'clock, after which I will cut off the entries. And from all the correct winners or answers, we will do a random draw for the winner. And I will announce that to the winner by email. And then I'll post it next week on the show as well. So I'll leave that question going across the bottom for a bit. And we're going to get back into our chit chat about shelters. Welcome back, fellas. Anybody go for a pee break? No? Okay, so we've talked about hot tents. We've talked a little bit about cold tents. Let's get into natural shelters. Martin, you build your own igloos. And I've seen videos on it.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen your igloos. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, well, I didn't start out by making igloos. I started off by doing quinzies when I was a boy. So that's how I got into winter camping. I started winter camping in my backyard, or actually in our front yard, when we were kids. You know, you just tunnel out a big cavity inside a mound of snow that was either put there by the plow or that we built up. You know, we just shovel up a big pile of snow and then you tunnel into it. So that's what a quinzee is, right? Or sometimes called a quinchie. But that's just a big pile of snow that you excavate. You tunnel down a bit, you tunnel under what will be the main wall. Then you tunnel up, and then you hollow out from the inside. Usually, it's a two-person job. One's in there sort of with a knife or a sharp stick or something like that, and you're just carving the snow, and you're sort of doggy paddling it down between your legs, and the person behind you is there with a little shovel, scooping out the entrance as you throw snow out until you've carved out what looks like the interior of an igloo, usually a low vaulted ceiling. And you would try to make your sleeping shelf or platform a little higher than the entryway, so that when you go in, you have to go in the shelter and then up and then onto a sleeping shelf. And that's so the wind doesn't just blow in and make you freeze at night. And then you make a little vent hole near the top. And that's more or less it. I mean, there's lots of videos and lots of things you can read on how to make a quinzhee. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but the essence is the same. Make a pile of snow.
A lot of work to build.
And there are a lot of work to build, and you tend to get wet. The way we would do it is we would take off as many layers as possible, get down to our base layer, put on your rain pants and your raincoat, and you go inside, and the person who's tunneling is doing a lot of work to hollow it out. It takes a long time. And it takes a long time because when you make that pile of snow, you can't excavate it right away. You got to walk away and go do something else and come back in about 90 minutes or 2 hours. You got to let that snow consolidate. It has to sinter up into one big hard snowball. If you just throw a pile of snow up together and start excavating, it's likely to collapse on you. And snow has this magnificent quality called sintering. When you agitate snow, whether through shoveling or when the plow goes by your driveway, for instance, and fills your driveway, the reason that crust of snow at the front of your driveway is so hard is it got agitated. That means all the little flakes of snow got broken up and they melt at their tips. All those fine little crystals melt at their tips, and then they refreeze together into a solid mass. And that's why the snow that falls in your driveway is easy to shovel, and the snow that's plowed at your driveway is hard to shovel. It's because it has been agitated, it is melted at a micro level, and then they refreeze together into a solid mass. And that process is called sintering. Well, that's how you make a snow shelter. You have to sinter the snow. So you have to allow it the sintering process, some time, usually about 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on temperature, and let it consolidate. So that's how I started winter camping. And it started just in the front yard. I recommend this to anybody. You want to start winter camping, you want to see if your gear is up to scratch, go make a quinzhee. Make it in your front yard, make it in your backyard, find out if one sleeping bag inside another is going to be good enough with a couple of foam pads underneath you. Spend the day outside. Don't go from indoors to suddenly trying to sleep outdoors, you'll freeze. Spend the day outside, hanging around, making your quinzhee, have supper outside, and then it'll get dark early. Crawl into the quinzhee and sleep, and you get to test your gear that way. You get a sense of what the cook system is like, what the clothing is whether it's up to scratch, whether your sleep system is up to scratch, and you'll get a sense of what it's like to sleep cold in winter. It's perfectly fine. Your face will be cold, and it keeps you up at first, but then you'll fall asleep. So that's how I started. I started as a boy. I was a preteen, like we were like 10 and 11 years old, I think. And then we decided, let's take it into the nearby woods, and let's take it into further and further woods. So I'd been quinzhee camping all of my young adult life. And then, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, I heard about this contraption called the Icebox Igloo Tool, which is a way to make igloos. So the Innu people, when they make igloos, they use what's called wind-packed snow. They can't make it out of any old snow. You need special snow conditions. Snow that has been sintered by the driving wind. The snow gets blown around along the Arctic barrens and tundras and snowfields, and it sinters hard that way. And then you can cut blocks out of that. But around here in Muskoka, the snow is not windblown and wind-packed, so you can't cut blocks out of it. So how do you do it? Well, there's this contraption. It's a plastic form with a pole that allows you to make these blocks, and you can make them in any snow conditions. If anyone's curious, go to my YouTube channel, the Pine Martin channel. I don't make any money off the channel. It's not a plug for that reason. But and look up igloos on my channel, and you see that I use this contraption called the Icebox Igloo Tool, and it allows you to make blocks in any snow conditions. It doesn't have to be powder snow. It doesn't have to be sticky snow. And it can be that dry, granular sugar snow that you could never make a snowball out of. You can make an igloo out of that. And it allows you to make blocks and at precisely the right distance from the center and at precisely the right angle as you go up until you get a nice arch And those shelters are strong enough that you can stand on them. In fact, I do. After I build them, I like to get up on top of them to show how strong they are. So that's how I got into igloos. Is I wanted something better than a quinzhee, because the problem with a quinzhee is the thickness of the wall is never uniform. The roof tends to be a little too thick. You can sometimes get a little bit of dripping condensation inside from your breath and respiration. Contacting the walls, and because the walls are not smooth and uniform, it doesn't necessarily run down. There might be little drip points and stuff like that. So quinzhees are great, but there's a lot of work and fuss to get them smooth and the right shape. If they're not the right shape, you wake up in the morning and they've kind of sagged, and you discover the ceiling's about a foot lower than when you went to bed. When you wake up, and so that's a little bit disconcerting. So if you're claustrophobic, it might not be for you. But an igloo is tall and bright and roomy and airy, and you can stand up in it. And so I like snow shelters, and I use snow shelters until just recently. I got into hot tenting, and it's expensive to get into hot tenting. So I was perfectly satisfied with snow shelters, because although it takes time to build a snow shelter, and I can build one by myself in about 4 hours, and with another person about 3.5 hours, or 4 hours. It's going to be a bigger shelter with 2 people, but by myself I can make a 7-foot igloo that's the floor space inside, wall to wall, 7.5 feet. I can do that in about 4 hours by myself in most snow conditions. It's a lot of time to invest in your snow shelter, right? But it's a heat trap. There can be a blizzard outside, and it's quiet. You won't even know it. You won't feel it. You won't hear it. It's blessedly silent in there, and it traps heat really, really well. The Inuit were able to raise their newborn infants in there in safety. How did they do it? Right? I mean, they used furs as their bedding material, and hides, and they weren't freezing. And it's never much higher than 0. It can get a little bit higher than 0 up at the top, but it has to be about 0, otherwise it would melt, right? I've never had a water bottle freeze. I've always slept perfectly comfortably inside of igloos. My wife has slept in igloos with me, and believe me, she sleeps really cold. She's not a hot sleeper. She's a skinny little thing, but she's quite comfortable in igloos. So I love igloos because they're silent. You can't feel the wind. There's no flap. There's no rustle. They trap heat beautifully. So until I got a hot tent, I never owned a winter sleeping bag. Never. I slept in igloos and quinzhees in 3-season bags. Sometimes I would double up a light summer bag over top of it. I had good insulation underneath me, but I never owned a winter sleeping bag, because it's so much hotter in an igloo than in any cold tent, and even a hot tent, unless you got the stove going, which I don't like to do. So that's why I like igloos and quinzhees. You sleep really, really well. The downside of that, though, is you can't just take up and leave and go. With a cold tent, hey, setup is easy. You tamp down a square, you let that center up, you fuss with some other chores, and then you pitch your tent, and you're pretty much good, right? And then the next day, if you want to make some miles, you want to go somewhere else, you strike your tent, and off you go, and you'll pitch it somewhere else. An igloo, when it takes about 4 hours to build by yourself, or about this comparable time to build a bigger one with a friend or a couple of friends, that's quite an investment in your day, and the days are short, so you can't go as far. And do you really want to build an igloo every day? Probably not. You'll be tired after you build your igloo. You'll want to use it for a few nights. So there are pros and cons. So if you're going to do like base style camping, right, build an igloo. And if you want to go back next week, it'll be there. If you want to go back in 3 months, it'll probably still be there unless you get a major thaw. I have on my channel photos and video clips of me going back to igloos that I built months before, and they're still standing, and they're as rock solid as the day that I built them. So if you want to do base camping, snow shelters are wonderful, completely cheap way to go. You don't need a huge backpack. You don't need a huge toboggan. You don't need a super, super expensive sleeping bag, and you don't have to bring a shelter. Your shelter is really just some know-how. And so I would bring my gear on a small, I wish I could show you, but it was maybe 3.5, 4 feet long, a child's sled that was about 4 feet long. I got a Canadian Tire, and I hauled that with a couple of plastic poles and some rope, and that was it. It was nothing to go up hills and down hills. So travel was fast and easy, very, very little gear. So it's a terrific way to camp, actually. And it's a very ancient and primitive way to camp. And it's also a good skill to know. I mean, igloo building is a little bit fussy. You have to buy this rather expensive contraption to do that. But building a quinzhee is also a good safety thing. You should know how to make a crude snow shelter in case everything goes wrong when you're out there. And not necessarily on a camping trip. You could be snowshoeing one day, just on a day hike, and you are lost and turned around, or someone was with you and they got wet and you can't get back, and you have only a couple hours of daylight. You can throw together a snow shelter with another person in very, very little time. And if you can't do that, you can always build a snow trench. So it's good to understand the insulative properties of snow and how they can be life-saving, how it is usually the shelter of last resort when there's no other material to use, and it will keep you warm and dry and safe and out of the wind in the worst of conditions. So I actually recommend it to everyone. It's a great way to start, and you can do it with your kids in the backyard. Your kids will love it. They will want to use it all winter.
I'm going for the world's record quinzhee this winter. I'm going to I'm going to take my snow blower over in our side yard. And I'm going to go out there once we get about a foot of snow, and I'm just going to go out and make a big circle, and I'm going to blow it all into the center, however big it is. I'm going for it. World record.
Cool. Yeah,
That'll work.
The Taj Mahal, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So
Nope.
no shelter. Like, what do you do to prevent it from possibly caving in on you, or there's a bit of confidence that has to go with sleeping in a snow shelter or an ice like a quinzhee or.
You broke up, Dennis, but I think I get the gist of your question there.
Frozen again, right?
Yeah, but I got the gist of your question. Okay,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
yeah, there is the concern about a collapse when you're building and sleeping in a snow shelter. Igloos, no. Igloos are incredible. So there's this specific arch shape that you're making when you make an igloo, I mean, I won't get into the geometry of it, but suffice it to say that it is hard to collapse an igloo. I mean, I literally walk over top and I could stomp on the roof of an igloo shortly after it's been built. Not immediately after, but shortly after when it's consolidated. They're that solid. So I have never worried about an igloo collapsing. They don't sink, they don't sag. But a quinzhee is an irregularly shaped object. You're throwing snow up in this sort of big conical shape, and you let the snow just land in what's called the angle of repose. And then when you're ready to excavate, you sort of knock off the very tippy top of it so that there isn't too much weight at the very, very point, right? You sort of round that out a little bit. And then you tunnel in. And you have to go in very, very gradually. And you don't tunnel straight in right for the heart of it. The way to avoid a collapse is you tunnel in, and as soon as you are in far enough that behind you is a wall thickness of about, yay big, about that big, right? Between 6 and 8 inches wall thickness, right? At least that, okay? Once you got that or more, you start tunneling up and you excavate above you. You clear the stuff above you. So this is why you wear rain gear. You're going to get wet, right? You're going to get snow landing on you. And then you drag that out, or you have a friend with a shovel sort of going in there between your legs while you're on all fours, shoveling the snow out from between your legs as you doggy paddle that snow out. So you excavate that way by excavating in and then up above you so that you are removing the snow load that is above you. And then you start to go deeper and deeper in, and then you go out to the sides, and you keep excavating above you and then down and out to the sides until you've got a sleeping shelf. You want, as I said, your sleeping shelf to be higher than the entrance of your doorway to manage it. But if you just tunnel straight in, well, now you've created this big long void right in the middle of this thing, and there's a huge snow load over top. So you avoid the chances of a collapse during the excavation by removing snow above your head as you go further and further and further in. That prevents a collapse. There are other tricks that people use. They'll take branches, they'll from the outside after they make their mound of snow, and they've let it consolidate. They'll put sticks in it, about a foot long or so. And those are guides so that once you're inside and you're excavating, if you notice, the I've just hit the edge of a stick or something like that. Okay, stop excavating. That's as far as you go. You hit a limit. So you can use those as guides. I find that you don't usually need that. As the walls get thinner, light from the outside starts to bleed through, and you can gauge the thickness of the walls by the amount of light coming through. On a gray, cloudy day, that's a little harder to do, but on any sunny day, it's pretty easy to do. Then once you've done that, you want to smooth the inside as much as possible to avoid drips, so that water will, the condensers inside will run down. You'll dig a little tiny trench on the inside perimeter of the wall so that any moisture runs down into that little trench. And then you'll throw down a tarp on the ground or on the sleeping shelf, and you'll sleep on that. If you're claustrophobic, and I have to confess, I am a little claustrophobic. I sometimes slept with one eye open when I made a quinzhee in really mild temperatures, and I was a little worried that it might start to sag in the night, and that happens because the wall thickness is not uniform, and there's a tendency not to want to excavate too much from the top. You end up with too much material on top, and the walls are not as thick on the sides, and so it starts to do this. Because snow is very plastic. It's not brittle. Snow is elastic. It bends. It does this, and so you can sometimes get a quinzhee that has looks like a bowler hat that's had the top punched down into it. Right. You wake up in the morning, and the walls go up, and then the ceiling right above you kind of sags down like this, about half a foot or more. Now, if it's really cold, that's not going to happen. But on a really, really mild night, when the snow gets really, really soft, that can happen because you are expressing heat all night long. You're expressing moisture in your breath all night long while you sleep. The shelter itself is a heat trap. Okay, so it is soft inside. The walls are actually not hard and icy unless you let them ice up. So there's a trick that you can use to further prevent this problem, and that is after you've excavated, light a few candles inside. Don't put a tarp down, just light some candles inside and walk away. Maybe seal up the door. Let heat build up inside, let the temperature rise to around the freezing point or a little higher, then go in and blow out the candles. That causes the inside of the quinzhee walls to soften, and then they freeze hard once the candle's out and the door is open again. Right? And that has two benefits. One, it creates some solidity on the inside. It prevents snow from falling. Also, when you brush up against the walls, you don't get snow, raining down on you. So that's sort of how you deal with a collapse. You understand how to build it. You understand what the shape is that you're aiming for. You're aiming for an igloo shape, which is not just a hemisphere. It's got to be taller than it is wide, and that's what you're aiming for. Most people, when they make quinzhees, I used to make this mistake all the time, which is why they used to sag, was I made them with too low a vaulting ceiling. They were wide and spacious inside, but they were not tall enough. I needed to make them much taller. So when you make your pile, make your pile tall enough and big enough so that once you're inside and you've hollowed it out, it's plenty tall. You should be able to sit upright. If you have to crawl inside on all fours, that's not tall enough. You want to be able to sit on your knees upright inside your quinzhee. And once you got that nice high vaulted ceiling, not a low vaulted ceiling, you don't have to worry about this thing happening and having it sagging on you.
Cool. Alrighty. So
Wine Martin has just proven that a whole entire show should be done on quinzhee igloos and so forth.
I could have if you let me.
Well, you know what? We could always do another show on that. I know I want to get a hammock camping special going again too. So I know there's been a lot of questions about hammock camping out there because there are a fair bit of hammock campers these days, and the old story with the underquilts. So I can attest to that. There, hammocks are quite comfortable for sleeping. For those of you that have tried it, 99% of the people enjoy it. Maybe the other 1% doesn't. And it's just because they haven't given it a long enough try, right? But I think that's going to be for another show. Somebody was asking about footwear and wearing proper footwear when you're camping, because what happens is first thing to get cold on you usually are these guys and the guys, their cousins down below, right? So what are some great footwear tips? Kevin?
Yeah, it's really important for footwear. So if you're going to wear boots, make sure that it has a liner, and make sure you bring an extra liner. So it's one of those like Canadian Tire boots that you pull the liner out, and you're going to sweat. So you can use a foot liner inside there, or a milk bag, whatever you want. That actually helps. But yeah, to bring an extra liner, and then when you're hot tenting, you hang it up, or if you're cold tenting or Quincy, you shove it in your sleeping bag to dry out as much as possible. But make sure you get an exercise boot and layer your socks. So don't make the boot tight, and make sure you just don't have one pair of socks on. You can use mucklucks or winter moccasins that I've tried, and I was really apprehensive when I was told to do this. I was traveling in the north with some people, and they said, yeah, you should try these. And this is a dry condition, like -20, but really dry snow. So I tried them on with snowshoes, especially with snowshoes. And it was amazing because you could feel the ground under your feet. And it was such a great experience. But also, you could layer so many different socks on, and you could hang them up in the hot tent, or you could dry them by the fire if you're doing a lean-to. And it was fantastic. In wet conditions, no. I mean, you're wearing leather, right? So, but what I do is I pull rubber booty over those in wet conditions. Or what's the thing that I have? I bought it at a store that was on sale for $30. They're like $200 boots. Oh, Neil's, what they're called, and they're pullovers. My male person was wearing them one day. I said, "Where'd you get those?" And you just put those over your boots, and that creates an incredible insulation in wet conditions. When you get to camp, you have an extra pair of boots. So I'll put my down booties on in the tent, and then change those over to dry socks. So, yeah. I wouldn't wear tight boots with no liners, or hiking boots with no gaiters. I would wear something better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before Pine Martin gets onto his Lure of the North mucklucks. But yeah, I'll have different footwear depending on the temperature. But mostly it's like either an insulated winter hiker like Oboz makes. He's going to get the mucklucks.
He is, isn't he?
So I've got Oboz like insulated winter hikers, which is great if it's like -5 or -8 or whatever outside. And then I have some like much heavier kind of Baffin insulated boots. But yeah, Kevin's point about bringing like some footwear that's good inside the tent goes a long, long way. Like some kind of the puffy down slippers with a bit of a sole to them are fantastic, because while you're drying out the liners of whatever footwear you wore out to get where you're going, your feet are also staying warm. And as far as socks goes, lots and lots of merino wool, and don't be afraid to layer them or take an extra pair or two. But the other part about footwear, and we're probably going to get into this a little shortly, is that the footwear you're wearing needs to match the method of transportation that you're using to get yourself where you're going. And so that's important when you're using snowshoes or skis or any number of other manners of meaning, or any other, ways you're talking about getting you and all your gear out there for winter camping. Is your footwear needs to be appropriate for that, whether you're carrying a pack or dragging a pulk or snowshoeing, et cetera, et cetera. So oftentimes, given the kind of winters that we have and the temperature fluctuations we go through, there's no one perfect piece of footwear unless you have Lure of the North mucklucks like Martin does.
Martin, did you go get them?
No, I had to go to the bathroom.
He's trying on the Lure of the North Peter heater. Well, Kevin, you really touched on something too, though, that even takes the whole discussion of footwear one step farther. We talked a lot about clothing, but we didn't talk about the importance of not wearing the same clothing that you've been wearing all day when you're going to bed, right? It's very important to get yourself into new, fresh layers that are dry.
And
And
that's tough. That's tough. I tell you guys, you really do. And if, especially if you're cold camping. So, because I don't knock cold camping or Quincy, whatever. In fact, if you're trying to travel quickly, that's probably the better than actually hauling a hot tent and a stove, right? But yeah, to the idea of actually going and say, okay, I'm going to change my clothes and go into my sleeping bag. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm going to wear exactly what I wore today. But you sweated, no matter how you've tried not to. But you sweated in those clothes, so it's going to be damp and clammy, and you got to change into a dry set of clothes for sure.
right, Martin, you wanted to say something about night drying?
Yeah, so night drying is the practice of letting your body heat dry out slightly damp or moist clothing in the night in your sleeping bag. It sounds really weird and counterintuitive because you want to wear dry clothes, a dry base layer or something like that when you crawl into your sleeping bag. Some people like to sleep naked, by the way. A lot of people say no. My body warms up faster if I am actually warming up my sleeping bag with my body heat right away without having an insulating layer between me and my sleeping bag. And that is a method that works for some people. I don't like it that much. I like to preheat my sleeping bag with a hot water bottle. I'll take an Nalgene bottle full of hot water. I'll throw it in there. That preheats my sleeping bag tolerably well, so that when I get inside, my sleeping bag doesn't feel cold. And if I'm in a hot tent, well, very often the sleeping bag isn't that cold anyway, because it's been, warm for much of the evening before I crawl into it. But if you're cold tenting, or if you're in a snow shelter, your sleeping bag's going to be icy cold unless you put a hot water bottle in there. But you might have some nice dry socks on now when you crawl into your sleeping bag, but you might have had some socks that got a little damp because you were wearing them all day. The felt liners of your boots are going to be damp. How are they going to dry out? Well, unless you got a hot tent, they're not going to dry out. They're just going to freeze hard, right? So what are you going to do, right? Well, hopefully you have a spare set of liners. You should always have a spare set of liners. But there's a way to dry your liners and dry your damp socks and your damp base layer. And that is crawl into your sleeping bag to go to sleep with a hot water bottle in there to pre-warm the bag and keep your feet warm, press your feet against the bottle. And bring those lightly damp clothes in with you and have them just lie on top of your body. And your body will warm them up and dry them. And when you wake up, your boot liners will be dry, your socks will be dry, your base layer that got, your merino wool base layer that got a little damp or something like that will be dry. I did that for years before I ever hot tented. I mean, now that I have a hot tent, when I go hot tenting, I don't have to worry about it. I can dry any clothes inside the hot tent because of the heated stove during the day or evening. But when I was cold camping, the only way to dry your gear was to do that, because building a fire, it's really hard to build a big fire, but night drying works. People have done it for ages. As long as there have been bedrolls and sleeping bags, people would night dry lightly damp gear. I mean, if it's soaking wet, it's no good. It's going to soak out your bag. You can't have that. But very, very mildly damp clothes from some days' sweat, it dries perfectly. When you wake up in the morning, it's pre-warmed, so you can crawl into it right away and get out of your sleeping clothes. Your felt liners are going to be dry. And I did that since I was a boy. I don't know where I learned it either. I think I learned it from another kid or something like that. But
Nate, just to confirm, you have slept with Pine Martin in a hot tent. Can we confirm that he sleeps not naked?
Yes, I can confirm that, but we haven't. We've only got 12 minutes left, and we haven't delved into the pee bottle yet.
Wait, why don't we invite somebody up, or why don't you tell us about the pee bottle, Nate?
Oh Lord, I was going to discuss other things, to be honest with you, like anything else. But so the decision you have when you are sleeping in a hot tent, of course, and you need to get up to use the bathroom to go number one during the night, is to whether you actually take the steps to go outside in the freezing cold to do that, or whether you go the trucker method and use a receptacle just outside your sleeping bag to do so. so that you don't have to go outside and thereby lower your body temperature by getting out of your sleeping system and going outside and then coming back in, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's two schools of thought. One is that you pee into a bottle from just outside your sleeping system and then go back to sleep and zip her up, or you get your butt out of your sleep system and you stagger out into the freezing cold and do what you need to do and then come back inside and slide yourself back into your rapidly cooling sleep system. So,
Hey, Nate, I remember once that I shouldn't tell this story, but it's a really good story that people can relate to. I was on a solo trip, hot tenting, which is actually a lot of work, by the way. I wouldn't recommend it. But I was going from camp to camp to camp, and I was my last morning, woke up, and I go, gosh, I have to pee really bad. And it was cold. It was really cold, right? So I go out to pee when I got the stove going for breakfast. I went, wait a minute. I'm leaving today. I'm by myself. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's ever camped here. And I peed in the corner of my hut tent.
Hope it wasn't near the stove end.
Is that the tent that you traded to Andy, by the way?
It actually was.
Just wanted to check.
That's okay. I don't think Andy's in the chat anyways.
No.
I thought that deal didn't sound that great. Now I know why it was.
Yeah, there was a bit of a stain on there.
Geez. You know what? We can go on for hours with this topic. Just got a couple things I want to put out there. For anybody that wants to get more out of this show, we're going to be going out, I think, a little bit into overtime here because there's still a lot to discuss. But there's also another video that I put out on winter camping that we did last year. I think Kevin and Martin were also on in the panel there. And it was a really good one. So if you go back into my history of season 1, you'll actually see another video in there, a live stream that you can actually check out. But you can also check out a lot of these guys, their videos and stuff like that on their channels because they share a wealth of information. Just want to say I'm popping into the live stream here, the link for anybody who might want to come up on panel to ask a question that we haven't covered because, like I say, there is so much to cover. So I'm just going to I'll drop it in there a bunch of times. If you want to join the panel for a little bit and ask a question, all I ask is that you get yourself set up on StreamYard here through the link I'm going to provide. But please shut off your volume on the YouTube feed so that we don't get feedback. I'm having enough technical issues to go to carry on with tonight there, so we're going to try and alleviate that. So just make sure you shut off your YouTube volume, but you'll still hear it through StreamYard. So with that being said, if I can...
Hey, Carla, that's a really good point. Do you want to come up and say something? Read her point. We're all men here. There's no women. Really good point.
There we go. Even my cut and paste wasn't working. Things are
falling
apart on me tonight. So here we go.
I would just add, Martin's channel has some fantastic information on it, and even just when you can watch the reasoning about how and why he sets up the hot stove inside the tent, the way he does, really makes a lot of sense. And Kevin, of course, has some fantastic content up there as well. Perfect segue.
Embarrassing, Kevin, but I'm going to put this up. This is Kevin's book on winter camping. This is fantastic. Check this out. I'm going to hold up Snow Walker's Companion. This is also really good. This is sort of being called the Bible of winter camping.
It is.
And it's now come back into print again.
Yeah.
So it's been super hard to find. It's an excellent book. So Kevin's in that. There are a number of other stuff out there. This one I'd also recommend let me hold this up here. It is not specifically all for winter hiking, but Skirka, the author of this, he's a madman. He's done everything, and it's got a lot of good winter info in it. So I would say for sure pick up Kevin's book, pick up CANOEHOUND'S book. Those are great. There's some really good in terms of resources, and you have to be a little bit careful, right? But on Facebook, there's some winter camping groups that are outstanding. The Sontags run one. Joe Stromsky runs one down here in the States. These are both fantastic. There's some other good ones out there. And the Winter Camping Symposium from Minnesota has now set up basically a site where you can go in, and it's like the old forum that used to be online. So if you want something that goes a little bit more detail, they set that up, and that's going to be a really nice thing as time goes on here. So definitely would say check those out if you get some time, because there's some really good info. And I will do one shameless bit of self-promotion, but because it's safety related, I don't feel too terrible about it. If you can see this, packing the perfect oh shit emergency kit for winter camping revisions. This is on our website, theoutdoorkind.org. And again, it's theoutdoorkind.org. And we have packing the perfect oh shit emergency kit. And then this is stuff that happens a little bit different in winter. So I just wanted to throw out a couple of resources here before we cut away, but these are all good things to check out too.
Yeah, we're not disappearing quite yet, but for anybody that is interested, I have that link to John's website down below in the description, so you can check that. That is there. And just for really quick, we're going to get into like sort of a little speed round of questions that are in the chat there, because it looks like we have a bunch of shy people and nobody's wants to join the chat to or the panel to come up and ask questions. But John, introduce us to your friend above your head there.
Friend above my the jackalope. Yeah. I've got this is actually in its winter coat. So for people who know, the winter jackalope.
With me. They are real. They do exist.
They are real. Yeah.
Okay, let's go through some. And anybody could jump in and answer these questions. Let's try and keep them short. We'll try and get as many questions in as possible. Elaine is asking ice safety. Love to hear from the panelist. Obviously, if we're out winter camping, you know, you're trekking out there, you're crossing ice, you know, maybe a lake in Algonquin Park, somewhere along Highway 60, maybe around Mew Lake campgrounds, which is open year round, by the way. It's, I think, the only park or trailer park or campgrounds in Algonquin that's open all year, right? So hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Who wants to say something on ice safety?
I would say, as someone who gets asked daily, and even, you know, we pick up the phone a lot and people ask us for whatever reason, hey, how's the ice up there? If you're not sure, just don't do it. If you're not 100% completely confident, stay off the ice. If you're not sure about what makes the ice safe or doesn't make it safe, stay off the ice. You know, there's 1,000 other opportunities for recreation and camping that don't involve ice travel or activities on the ice. So if, just like they'll say, any activity where you're going out in the outdoors and there's risk involved, if you're not 100% confident or feel safe in what you're doing, don't do it. There's not a whole ton of reasons why you would need to be crossing any ice surface if you weren't totally 100% comfortable about doing so at around this time of year. There's a ton of different ways about how to judge how thick the ice is and how safe it is for travel. So do some really basic research at the very least. And then also, ask a lot of questions about where you are going to, you know, potentially be on the ice, for people that have been there, people that know, and make sure you ask more than one or two people or get information from one or two sources, so that you actually get a good feel of the information that's out there and how accurate it is. I would just caution against any unnecessary ice travel at all, unless you're 100% confident in what you're doing. The other thing I just wanted to comment on the kind of the lack of female representation up on the panel tonight, and I would just say that there is lots of fantastic content out there for that. Camper Christina,
for sure,
is a great YouTube channel, and she has done a ton of solo winter camping, and Alexis Outdoors as well. I know John and Aaron have some great, fantastic winter camping content on their YouTube channel. So there's lots of it out there. That's for sure, if you do a little bit of searching.
And just for the record, I did try to get a couple of female presences up here on panel, because, as you know, I love to see the women out in the backcountry, and they can do everything else guys can, and sometimes even better. So, but it just didn't work out that way. I see we have 3 people in the basement. I'll bring each one up at a separate time. So to those of you that are in the basement, I see all 3 of you, and we're going to start with the first person who popped up to ask a question, and that would be Ben Stacy. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah. I was late to this, so I'm hopefully what I'm going to ask you guys didn't already cover. First thing
We already covered it, Ben.
Oh, okay. All right. First thing in the morning, cold or hot tent, doesn't really matter. Obviously, you're probably going to be cold. How do you get warm? What's the first thing you do, or what would you say is the best thing to do to get your body warm first thing?
I haul out to get the car, turn the car on, and go to Tim's.
That's one solution.
Because I know, I was going to say, I know when I'm camping with my buddy Tim, he's always complaining about how cold it is, and he's always trying to light a fire first thing to get warm. And the first thing I do, I go for a hike, like a 20-minute hike, then come back and get a fire going. So
my solution is I get up and I get busy. If you get up and you just stand around and try and rub yourself and stuff like that's not going to work. Do some jumping jacks. You know what I mean? As silly as you may look or as it may seem, getting that blood flowing is the best way to get yourself warm. And it especially works good with the extremities, right? The feet and the toes. Because getting out of your sleeping bag and slipping into those cold boots first thing in the morning, you know what I mean? So that's my remedy. How about you fellas?
Well, I have a routine when I do lengthy trips, right? So, so basically, if with your other people, we we delegate. So we need fresh water in the morning because it's going to freeze through the night, unless it's not that cold, whatever. But we have to do the hole in the ice again. Now we've already made the hole in the ice the night before and put boughs on top so it doesn't freeze, but it's somewhat going to freeze. So. And this is kind of a personal thing, but I need to get out of the tent in the morning because I need to do my constitutional act, right? And my buddy Andy knows that. And Andy will get the stove going. I mean, he pees a lot, but I poop a lot, right? So basically, he'll get the stove going, and I'll reopen the ice. I'll get the water. And you're right, Dennis, that gets me warm because I'm moving out of the tent and walking down the lake. I don't want to do that at that point in my life, but once I get clothes and do that, I'm warm. Then I know that I'm going to come back to a warm tent with the coffee going, or ready for the coffee going because I got the water. And yeah, it's almost like just do it, and then everything's fine once you get moving. Cold tenting, that's tough. I mean, to knock the ice off your boots, to put your boots on in the morning so you can keep going. Good God. No, it's not pleasant at all. And the only reason I would do cold tenting or hammocking is if I had to make distance. So, Dennis, you're right, too. I would do a really quick breakfast and get my gear on and then start hiking. Half hour later, I'm sweating. I'm really way hot. I mean, you're never cold during the day when you're traveling. You're always warm.
It's when you're inactive that the blood starts slowing down, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Hopefully that answers your question or helps out, Ben.
awesome. Thanks, guys. Good seeing you.
I'm going to drop you back down to the basement. Don't go away. You can leave StreamYard going there. We'll get you into the green room after the show if you want to join, if you want to, for a little bit.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it.
Kevin,
our next to the stream is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat. How you doing tonight, Darren?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Got a question for the panel?
Yeah, I love hearing all the great advice about the gear and everything like that. I'm just curious, do you guys know anybody who does, or even a group of people who do like an introduction guided kind of expedition out there? Because it's expensive to get into it. We can't afford a hot tent yet. I've never done a hot tent, but I would love to. I haven't even done a yurt in Algonquin or anything. We've got friends who would love to try it. Lure of the North is completely booked, and good on them. But is there anybody else out there who's doing, just an introductory overnight, 2 overnights, pulling a poke out with a hot tent, kind of show us the ropes kind of situation, just for people to try?
Yeah, Darren, I know of a few new ones. So Zach at Frontenac Outfitters, I went tripping with him last year at Frontenac. and he wanted to get into the hot tenting at his outfitting. Because Frontenac, if you know Frontenac, is kind of different. It's base camp, even though it's interior, but you've got a bunch of group campsites. So he had this idea to actually start hot tenting in his park, right? So he just ordered a bunch of hot tents. So, so I think that would be a really good thing to contact him for that. I know Algonquin Outfitters just got a bunch of hot tents, so I don't know if they're renting them or not. Nate would actually be able to answer that, but that might be an option for you as well. But I would go to the winter group on Facebook and just beg them to take you. I think that's one of the best things, that we're all sort of like-minded people. And if Darren, you want to go winter camping, and if you don't have the resources, there's people that want to get you out there. So just do that. And just
awesome.
Look, Kevin said, "You'll take me out." And then start crying. Pull a Pine Martin if you want. That will help.
I don't know. Keith Park just put up on here Algonquin Base Camp. Is that an organization or something? I'm just curious.
They're outfitters. Yeah, they're outfitters. I believe they're located in Kearney. At least they used to be, and they offer a service, a hot tent service, and they provide the equipment. If I'm not mistaken, the last time I spoke to them about it, they would set up the hot tent for you. They sort of set up and they would guide you to it, and so you get the experience without having to drag everything out there. But I'm not current on how they do it, but they're located near Kearney, which is, I think, closest to sort of access point 2 outside of Algonquin Park. So it's a little bit north of Huntsville.
Well, Nate, what's the dog sledding group? I don't know if they still do this, but they used to take people dog sledding, and the hot tent would be set up for you. It's in Algonquin, in the central part of Algonquin.
Oh shoot! Is it Algonquin Highlands Dog Sled Adventures?
I think so. The owner has like a massive red beard, bigger than actually Kevin Outdoors' red beard.
Oh, awesome.
There you go, Darren. I think you should make note of that one there.
Thanks, Marion. Yeah, I'll definitely take a note of that too.
I'll leave it up there for a sec if you need to write it down.
Winter camping. Oh, perfect. Yeah, Kevin, I know what one you mean, and I'm sure at maybe like 3 a.m. this morning I'll think of the name.
Okay.
But I'll let Dennis know if I remember what I'm talking about. Yeah, they're starting to catch on a lot more, which is really, really encouraging. The logistics behind renting that kind of equipment, and also the liabilities, fairly substantial and kind of intricate, especially when you start talking about how to clean a cotton canvas tent that comes back soaking wet, and then the stove along with it, and then
COVID issues too.
Yeah, so it's something we're trying to sort out for ourselves, because we know the demand is there, and we want to be able to help our customers with that. But Canadian Outdoor Equipment in Port Credit does hot tent and stove rentals.
Oh, cool.
As far as I know, still, right, Kevin?
Yeah, Canadian Outdoor Equipment still rents them. And they have the same issue. They're like, is it really worth it? They're not making anything off it, especially when they have to clean them afterwards. But they want to get people out there winter camping. So I do know. Also, I heard that Silent Lake Provincial Park, the superintendent, contacted me, and they're extending their winter hours for winter camping. So if Mew Lake is getting insanely busy, what is that? It is getting busy, then actually Silent Lake. I mean, I go to Silent Lake a lot because it's just whatever, but it's an incredible place. So you pull into a plowed-in campsite, pull up and put your hot tent up, and there's no heated washrooms, but there's an outhouse, and you could do a whole Pine Martins thing and bring a hot water bottle and put it on your bum. You'd be good.
Kevin, Mew Lake, is that the popular campsite on Highway 60 in Algonquin Park that's open all year for camping?
Sorry, did I give out the...
No, is it?
Yeah, but that was the
Mew Lake.
question for your...
Okay. Just curious. Thanks, Darren. I hope that answered your question there. We got 2 more people in the green room there I'd like to get to before the end of the show. Thanks very much. Feel free to stick around in the green room after I drop you down, and we'll try and get you back in after the show.
Thanks.
Whoops, wrong button. Next to come on up here, I see you down there as well, Carla. We'll get you up in a second, but we got Johnny and Colleen from Cool Quest, a real up and coming YouTube channel. Our Can-Am friends, right? How you doing, guys?
Hi, everybody.
Good, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Hey guys.
Hi, John. First of all, you look, you're getting cold in there now. The jacket's on, the gloves are on.
Yeah,
I got my windows open. It's freezing.
Right.
it was about freezing when I got in here to start, and I think it's dropped a little bit outside. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. So no, my question is, what is the best or the suggested piece of equipment to get your gear to where you're going?
Right. So, is it the big sled? Is it the poke? I think is that what it was called as well?
Toboggan.
Toboggan.
Toboggan or pulk, yeah.
Poke. Okay.
Pulk, P-U-L-K, pulk, yeah.
Or Kevin Callan's poke. You just throw it all on his. He likes pulling that stuff.
No, they do that all the time. Have you noticed my freight toboggan is the long one? And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, Andy, well, and then Tim, and then Ashley, like they got a 6-foot freight toboggan. Mine's 12 foot. And pulling those parts, by the way, in the morning, throw snow on it, and if it sticks, start putting wax on or scrape the frost off. Because if you don't do that, it's like pulling cement. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
The greatest thing about winter camping is that you're using the snow to your advantage. You're using snow to actually haul your gear, right? If you're hauling lots of gear, right? And that's a huge advantage. I mean, the people in the far north love the winter more than they do the summer because it's easier to travel. When I worked in forestry, we did forest measurement in the winter because it was easier to travel in the winter than the summer. But at the same time, you have to be logical about it. I mean, if your whole freight toboggan is sticking in the snow, it really is going to hurt a lot.
Yep, this is a great question, and because I'm sure a lot of people out there right now that just got into backcountry camping maybe this summer and are all of a sudden really keen on winter camping, they're wondering about a number of things, and that was a great question from Cool Quest. And I think one of the easiest things everybody can try to figure out for themselves right now in terms of gear is to find yourself something to haul your gear, and that's usually the thing that everybody usually starts out with is that Pelican 45 or that Pelican 60 sled that you're going to find at Costco, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, and find them now before they run out, because they will run out, and once they're sold out, they won't get any more in until next year, which is why we sell them. So if you don't find yours before Canadian Tire, Home Depot, or Costco runs out, we do have some, and we carry the nice Pelican ones with the actual PVC runners on the bottom. But yeah, if you can, go out and find yourself a Pelican 45 or a Pelican 60 at a good deal, and that is going to get most of your stuff to where you want it to go. And then the next biggest piece of equipment is going to be like, well, you know, how am I going to pull this sled through the forest to where I want to go? And that's going to be your mode of transportation, which is most likely at this point probably going to be snowshoes. If you're backcountry winter camping, and you should also, and I'm telling you this as a retailer who wants everybody to be able to go out and enjoy the outdoors this winter as much as possible, if you're in the market for snowshoes or think you want a pair of snowshoes in order to keep yourself active this winter or to pull a polk or a toboggan full of your winter camping gear out to where you're going, get them now. Get your snowshoes now, hop online and find a really quick sizing chart for what size you need to get. There's a ton of advice. There's a ton of really good advice on snowshoes out there. But I would say at this point, you really just need to dial in your size and find some, because I think once mid-December to early January hits and we get some substantial snow and everyone wants to be out there, there's not going to be much left for people to buy.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, I got us a couple of nice MSR Lightning Ascent for Christmas last year. So
Beautiful. Awesome.
Yes, we have the snowshoes. And then should we each get a sled? Like, I know.
Well, that
not everybody's got a
depends
truck or a
on
big
how
vehicle
much gear
like
you're
that. So I mean,
for two of you, it could look like a couple of the following scenarios. For two of you, it could look like one of you is pulling a sled and one of you is carrying a pack. or it could just look like one unlucky sucker is pulling a sled and the other one is snowshoeing along. But it really, yeah. So Martin's got a good take on this, because when Martin and I went, it was 2 people for not a long period of time, but we had a substantial amount of gear, especially when you start talking about a hot tent and a stove and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that gear adds up, and it's going to be far easier for you to pull it on a sled than to put it into a backpack. So at the cost of buying a plastic sled for $60 to $90,
Right.
well, for me, that's worth it. Martin's going to have a good take on it as well, I think.
Yeah, well, Nate and I did a short trip. I think it was just an overnight. Did we just do one night, Nate?
Yeah.
It was just one night, yeah. So 2 days, and he had a very big, wide, black thing. Worked really well, and Nate's a beast. He went in on skis. He didn't have snowshoes. We were going up some really big hills and some dense bush, and he was on Altai backcountry skis. And he had an easier time of it than me, but that's just because he's just a beast. He's a big brute of a guy. He's saying no, he's not, but he is. Whereas I was hauling this sled. Now, I mean, I don't know if it was heavier or not, but it had the stove and the tent and all that, so it was fairly heavy. It's not uncommon when 2 people go out that you will have 2 sleds. Okay, you can usually have a heavy one and a light one. Okay. Or you can try and balance it out. But the thing that you'll want to keep it, and the reason you'll have 2 is just because you're going to bring clothes, and your sleeping bags are going to be bigger and all that. And if you've got a hot tent, well, a hot tent and a stove, that's practically that's a sled, right? It's not a freight toboggan. A freight toboggan can be really long. It can be like 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 feet long. But chances are it will not be that long. I'm getting a lot of feedback from somebody. Colleen, maybe you need to mute something. Is it possible you need to?
I got my feed muted on our end.
Okay, I don't know. So anyway, the thing is, when you're both dragging a sled, what you want to do is you want the person who's breaking trail, who's going first, to have the lighter load, because they have the hard job of breaking the trail. So let whoever has the lighter load break the trail.
Gotcha.
And whoever's hauling that big heavy thing, they're going along, they're just trudging along in the float. That's the track that's left by the person ahead of them. So the float is the tracks left by your snowshoes, and it's been compacted by the sled, right? And then the person that's behind, right, hauling the second one, has an easier way, right? And whoever's going first, if they're going through woods, has to sort of pick the route and the terrain. Should we go this way, or is it too steep, or should we go around that way?
Right.
Stuff like that. It's not fast travel. It's always slow travel. And you don't have to worry about, saying, okay, yeah, well, I'll go for it. I've got the light. But then you do the hard work of breaking trail. But that's okay, because what you can do at any point, you can say, okay, let's just switch. And what you do is you just drop your load and you switch positions. So as soon as someone starts in the lead position, starts to tire out, you switch. So for instance, my wife will tire out faster than I would, because I'm bigger and stronger than she is. So even if we had similar sled comparable weight, we would just switch positions, right? So she would pull for 10 minutes. I might pull for 15 or 20, and then we would switch. And that's how you do it. That's how I do it. That seems to be a sensible way to do it. As for what you should get, a toboggan or a sled or a pulp. A sled or a pulp is very, very cheap. It'll usually hold everything you want. It tends to be a lot tippier, right? It's because it's rigid. So you go over a hill or a log or something like that, and it has a tendency to roll and tip. They're frustrating that way. A freight toboggan is not like an old wooden toboggan. It's made out of a high density plastic, and it follows the contours of the terrain. So it hugs the topography of the terrain that you're on, which is great. So it's unlikely to tip over. And on flats across lakes, it's beautiful. But the problem is that those are really expensive. And you have to sort of get into waxing them sometimes, and depending on snow conditions, right? So it can be a bit of a fuss. But the other nice thing about a toboggan is they roll up, so they store easily in your home, they store easily in your car. Whereas a big plastic orange Canadian Tire Special sled, which is cheap and easy to get, it doesn't fit so easily in the back of your car, right? So unless you've got a hatchback or a pickup truck or something like that, you might not have a choice. You might have to get a toboggan that rolls up and then, get it ready once you arrive at your destination. So it really depends on what you can afford and what kind of vehicle you have. I've known people who were all ready to go, had everything packed, and then they got to their car and they realized, I can't fit these 2 sleds in there. Like, there's no way with our gear, and I know, like the kids and all that, there's no place to put the sleds. So they had to figure out a way to like tie the sleds on top, the empty sleds on top of the roof, like a canoe and stuff. So you have to sort of think about the logistics of it. So the kind of car you have makes a difference. I have a CRD hatchback, and it holds 2 5-foot-long sleds easily in the back, but I don't have passengers in the back seat. There's just usually 2 of us in the front seat.
One thing that's cool too when you're talking about pulps, for people that haven't used them yet, when you're going out, it's like, it is so, like when you compare it to backpacking and stuff, right, where you got a full pack on and everything and you're walking around, it is so nice to have those and to carry and to pull that gear, and it pulls so easily and so smoothly. I was hauling firewood once and just loads and loads of firewood on that pulk, and it was just like, thank you, God. So for people, those orange pulks that you can get, those, they're inexpensive. You can get them at the hardware stores. They're awesome. They're worth every penny of it. Uh-oh. Dennis, we lost your volume.
Thank you.
The hell, how many hats do you have, Nate? You're beating.
One more thing I wanted to say. If you're a cold tent,
Dennis, we can't hear you right now.
Yeah.
Let's try that. Sorry, we do have 2 more people in the basement that I want to get on, in fairness, so let's make it quick.
The point is very quick. If you're cold tenting, so you're going with minimal gear, you might be tempted to bring a backpack. Unless the terrain makes it the only possible choice, just get a kid's sled and throw everything on there. Your back will get sweaty when you have a backpack, and you will be wet. You will arrive at your campsite and you will be wet. You will have a wet back because your back will not breathe no matter what you wear. And that's one of the big advantages of hauling behind you. And as soon as you get tired, you just stop and drop the rope and rest and look around and drink in the scenery.
Awesome. Okay, so Johnny and Colleen, I'm just gonna drop you guys into the basement. Hopefully you got that answer. Stick around if you want. I'm gonna get on to Carla with a K, and then we have Sue's outdoor crew in the basement. I will get to you both here, and I'm bringing up Carla with a K right now. Hi, Carla. How you doing?
Hi. Can
Sorry
you hear
for
me
the delay.
okay?
Hey, Carla.
Hi.
Wisconsin.
So, Wisconsin representing in the house. So earlier people were asking different resources on how they can get outdoors. And there are places like yurts that you can get through Hip Camp, Airbnb, VRBO. I know I've got a meetup group that's listening tonight, Milwaukee Backpackers Campers. They're on here. We are learning. So there are a lot more resources out there if you just start asking. And I wanted to tell you, because no one brought up hand warmers. I got this hand warmer that's actually reusable. I got it off eBay. I'm sure that's what, Chinese, Japanese, I don't know what Asian language that is, but these are reusable. So I just boil them. And this is what I use when my cat goes camping with me, because my cat camps with me all year round, including in the winter. He sleeps right on top of me in my hammock. My question for you guys, do you winter camp with your pets?
I brought my dog with me last year, winter camping at Mew Lake on Highway 60, which is the only campsite in Algonquin Park that's open year round.
That's a nice place.
It is. Well, yes, I have a Springer Spaniel, and I have a down-filled sleeping bag that she lays on top of a mat, and then I fold it over on top of her, and she's like toasty warm all night. Anybody else? Nate, I know you bring your beast of a dog.
Yeah, my dog goes. My dog doesn't like winter camping. She'll go out on the trail at midnight and look up on the trail and say, "We're going home now, right?" I went, "No, we're not going home." And but she's good. I bring a blanket for her. I bring a sleeping bag for her. I bring a pad for her. Bring a jacket for her. My partner's dog, Christine's dog, Oliver, shivers in the summer. So I took her. I took him winter camping last year. Oh my God! So what happened was the dog was freezing and shivering, so I put it in the sleeping bag, and everything's fine. But I thought, an hour, so I better check. The dog was not moving at all. Like, I poked it. I even held it up like a pig and shook it, and the dog did not move. I went, "I've killed her dog. This is not good for the relationship. I've killed her dog. I've suffocated it in the sleeping bag, trying to keep it warm. The relationship's over." And the dog all of a sudden woke up and looked at me and like, "I was having a good sleep. What's your problem?" So.
It's funny you say that, Kevin, because when I took Molly camping at New Lake, the only campsite in Algonquin Park that's open year-round for winter camping and stuff like that. Anyways, Molly, because she slept underneath my down-filled sleeping bag that I had for her, I think she was getting carbon monoxide poisoning or something, because she got up in the middle of the night and puked all over the place.
Really?
Yeah, so I think maybe you have to be careful that you have to make sure you give them a few puffs of air, like lift the bag really quick and let it out just to get some fresh air in there, right? But yeah, she actually got up and puked all over my buddy Ingo's tent. Sorry, Ingo. But yeah. She was okay. She's okay.
Yeah,
So, Carla?
Moose comes with me for 3 seasons of the year. I haven't tried winter camping with him yet. I don't know if I will, because he's getting older, to be honest with you. And the good news is that our pets have they always want to be hanging out with us, which is awesome. And they usually have a much higher kind of uncomfort threshold or discomfort threshold than we humans do. So which is really good news, because it makes it easier for them to be with us in situations that would be usually more uncomfortable for us than them. And that's for sure, especially with dogs. But yeah, I think there's a certain point where you have to realize that, probably due to logistics, like your dog or your cat, if you can't 100% make sure you can effectively keep them warm the entire time that you're out there, then maybe it's not the greatest idea. I'm really lucky with Moose because he's a mixed breed, but part of his breed is Newfoundlander, and so he has an extremely thick first layer coat and web toes, etc., etc. So he loves the cold weather. He will go and lay outside in -20 in the backyard for as long as he possibly can until he's forced to come inside. So it's not really an issue. The only issue with him is his age, and he's starting to kind of lose a lot of muscle mass in his back end and start to slow down like that.
Nate, this will mess you up. Okay, so I was working on a book the other day, and I wrote a story about Fred the hawk. I worked at a wildlife center, so I had a lot of odd animals that I used to have, and one was Fred the red-tailed hawk, and I took it to all the schools and was Dr. Nature at all the schools. But I took that bird with me on canoe trips and winter trips. So I remember going on the Western Highland Trail with a red-tailed hawk perched on my backpack, and then I made camp, and then it would perch outside my tent at night while I slept inside the tent. That's messed up.
You're like a Ringling Brothers.
It was odd. It was really odd.
Yeah, no, it should have been in the tent, and you should have been perched on a branch.
Nature will show that. I mean, the red-tailed hawk was fine, and it was like probably -20, whatever. And the bird's like, "What's your problem?" Here I'm shivering. The bird's like, "Yeah, whatever. It's cold. Like, deal with it, buddy." Yeah. I had a ferret that I took, and it pooped on my glasses, and it froze, and I put my glasses on, and the open poop was on my glasses in the morning, and yeah, sorry, I going off on tangent. I'll be quiet.
So, Carla, I hope that answered.
A couple,
Yes, thank you.
More than she
a
bargained.
couple quick safety questions. I wanted to put out there to the panel for Martin and for especially Kevin Callan, who literally wrote a book about winter camping. But should people in a hot tent or in a cold tent be using alternative fuel sources inside the tent to keep themselves warm, such as propane, isobutane, alcohol, or liquid fuel?
Well, okay. I can say that two things. If it's well ventilated, it will work because I've been in the far north where there's no trees, and I've been in a canvas tent with First Nations people, and they've used one of those old Coleman white gas stoves to heat the tent with, right? However, I would say no, absolutely not.
Yeah, I would concur. You shouldn't be burning anything inside that isn't going to be vented out. I mean, the reason in a canvas hot tent you could have a fire going is because there's a chimney that vents directly outside. That's what makes it safe and sane, and anything else would be crazy. You wouldn't consider even having a twig stove fire inside your hot tent, right? Even a tiny twig stove fire would be out of question in a hot tent. And the danger with burning anything else is that if it doesn't combust properly, you could be a goner. There was a woman who passed away in British Columbia. This was a news item that I saw in my Facebook feed just a few days ago. And this happened right around Thanksgiving, our Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. She was in a tent. It was a cold tent. It wasn't a hot tent. It was a regular summer tent. And she was in there with her daughter. And in order to stay warm, she took some burning embers from a campfire outside, put them in a pot, I think some tinfoil or something like that, to warm the tent at night because it was going to be a cool night. And they found her dead in the morning. Her daughter survived, but she perished because of that. And it's because it released an enormous amount of carbon dioxide. So anything that is combusting imperfectly is not completely being combusted. It's going to give off carbon monoxide, and it's odorless. And it doesn't need to give off a lot. It just needs to be in there and be produced faster than it can vent out. And then, oh God, that's really scary. The carbon monoxide just needs to build up steadily. It doesn't need to fill the tent, right? Carbon monoxide just needs to build up, and your body will inhale that. And then you're a goner. Right? You'll never know. You won't wake up coughing. It's not like inhaling smoke. You won't wake up coughing. It's not like running out of air. Nothing will signal to you that you ought to wake up. You'll just never wake up. So no, I don't think you should have anything like that. Unless you can safely burn something in the stove that's meant to burn in the stove, like wood, that's venting through the chimney directly out. No, I wouldn't bring anything in. And it's the same thing with a cold tent. I wouldn't bring anything in. If your sleep system will not let you sleep cold, you don't have any business going out there. And the easiest way to learn how to do it, make a snow shelter in your backyard and test out your sleep system in that. You'll know.
Okay, so we're going to get to Sue's question, and then we're going to wrap up with our finals for the night there. I want to let John have a little chit-chat with us before the show's over. So, Sue, what have you got for our panel? And everybody get ready to drink because you know Kevin's coming back with a new hat. So,
question.
Yes.
I just wanted to be on with like styling with like the plaid.
There you go. There you go.
Got a drink.
Come on, do the Vanna White. There we go.
And the cat hat, as we said.
Sue, the scary.
Not sure the cat's thrilled about that one.
The scariest part of the plaid is that when we were in the green colored room before we started this panel, and we all decided that we should be wearing red and black plaid. It took all the panelists less than 30 seconds to find their red and black plaid and put it on screen.
And I feel so damn left out, I'm telling you, man.
I literally, when I saw the red and black, I went, done.
Yeah, it was like the Batman costume for everybody.
So my
Everybody
husband, I'm
was
like,
oh, yeah,
put
Red
yours
Box
on. I
Live,
come
oh,
sit
yeah.
down. He's like,
Wow.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah,
Crazy. So you don't actually have a question. You
yeah.
just
No, I
want to
don't
come
have a
and
question. I
style
just
it.
want
Style with
to
everybody.
No, I will.
Whoop, sorry, you're breaking up now, Sue.
All right, I'm gonna go. Actually, I'm done.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Good to
Bye,
see you,
Sue.
Sue.
Good to see you.
All right, guys. So I just want to give John a couple minutes here. I know he every time John's on the show and with his organization that he founded there, the Outdoor Kind LLC, it's a very good thing that he's got going there in helping to support frontline workers and first responders. So, John, tell us a little bit about that before the end of the show. I'll give you a minute or two.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. So my wife and I set up a business to support first responders in Canada and the U.S. and also to do educational outreach. So whether it's talking safety on, could be anything like this, or going out to some shows. We have, like I mentioned, some safety info on the website. Those kinds of things. Going talking to classes and schools. We try to get as much safety information as we can out there. One of the ways that we do that, and one of the ways that we raise funds, is we take donations for swag at a lot of the big events. And because of COVID this year, we lost. We're kind of hanging on by the skin of our teeth right now, to be honest. So what we're going to do this year, at the end of the year here, is we're going to do something different. We're going to do an online fundraiser. We're going to do, it's a presentation. It's called Lions and Great Whites and Bears, Oh My, and it's about outdoor photography. I think, there we go, yeah. And what it is, it's going to be photos that I've taken through the years. I worked as a photographer for a long time, and so it's going to be a lot of wildlife and nature photography, and then the stories about how those photos came to be. So you can see the lion there from South Africa, as well as the shark, and then the polar bear up in Churchill. So there'll be stories about that. There'll be tips about how to take better pictures and things to think about, ethics of shooting when you're out in the wild, and a little bit about tech. So it'll be just kind of a fun evening. We're going to do this on December 16th. We're going to ask a minimal donation to sign up. So it'll be like $4 or $5. The presentation will be at least an hour and a half. We're going to set it up kind of like this, what you're seeing here, and then we'll go through the photos, talk about it. We'll have a handout on that people can get. That's the former teacher in me. So people will be able to do that. We'll have information on the outdoorkind.org website about this. Probably by Thursday, we'll have it set up on Facebook as well. And maybe, Dennis, we could harass you into maybe just posting that or sharing that as well, so people
Well, certainly will.
But anything that if you've been to any of the presentations, or you found any value in the handouts and the safety info that we've given people, if you'd like to just if you could go ahead and join in on that on December 16th, we'd really, really appreciate it. So cheers and thank you. Thanks, Dennis, for letting us chat about
No problem, John. So quick question about that. All the information, is that on your website?
It will be, yep. It should be by Thursday. We should have all the ticketing details finalized.
Okay, so I urge everybody to double check in the description below, because like I said, I do have a link to John's website down there. And once he gets that all posted, you can gain more information about that. Kevin's got another wacky hat on. I haven't got a chance to type in chat or drink. So drink. Did you know that there was a drink game going on tonight, Kevin?
No.
Pray for Nathan Adventure Show. He put a thing on there that tonight's drink game was every time you changed your hat, we had to take a drink. So thank you very much, Kevin and Nathan.
Yeah, you know what? He didn't really have to do that. It would have been a game anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
one last really, really important thing just before we get into a bit more of the season here. Kevin or Martin, your best advice on ice safety going forward for people that have maybe been backcountry camping for the first time this summer and want to get out there a bit more this winter. Ice safety, please.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My view is if you don't know how to read ice, stay off of it. It's just like if you don't know how to read rapids, stay off the rapids. If you have some experience, I mean, there is a point here where water moves, it doesn't usually freeze, and where it freezes thin. Wherever water narrows, where there's a water way that's like a big wide floodplain that narrows into a creek, where the water is moving, where it's running, it's going to be thin ice. It might only be a layer of snow covering it, and there might be no ice. Just steer clear of it. I mean, I know a little bit about reading ice. I'll do it when I go with someone. When I go out by myself, I have a promise to my wife. I will not cross ice by myself. And if you do cross ice, make sure you're not connected to your pulk by poles. You have to have a rope that you can let go of. And you should be carrying a long bar or pole or plank or something. If you break through, you'd sell your soul to have something to hold on to. But the safest thing is just don't do it until you learn how, until you go out with people who know how to read ice and cross ice. It's a terrible idea. I've had some close calls in my life when I was young because I didn't know what I was doing. And honestly, my skills are not up to the point where I would be comfortable guiding someone across a frozen waterway unless I knew it was really, really solid, and I would test it as I go. And also, there's like real problems crossing ice that have nothing to do with the thinness of the ice and breaking through. If you've ever hit a slush pocket, the slush that forms above the ice but below the snow layer, when you are walking in snowshoes and you hit that slush pocket, you need to get out of there right away. Your sled can get stuck in that mess, and your snowshoes, when you lift them out and they hit that cold air covered in slush, they will flash freeze, and you have 40-pound feet. And you are in a really bad place. So just stay off the ice unless you really know what you're doing.
I already have 40-pound feet. I got size 13, so.
All right. Wait, Kevin, what would you say to that?
Well, on the other side of the coin, too, I absolutely right. But traveling across the ice is a lot easier than traveling through the bush, right? So knowing ice conditions and snow conditions is a very important skill. I love winter camping because you step it up a notch. You need those skill sets, right? But, when I moved here up in the hill about 5 years ago, it was my first winter here. And there were some guys, the ice had just froze like 5 days before a big storm, and they're out ice fishing. And all the locals were yelling out, saying, "You're idiots, you stupid idiots." And where they were fishing, it was a good place to fish, but there's underwater stream that came in on Chemung Lake, and that's why it was good fishing, but that's where they were fishing. And what's really interesting is that the police arrived because people called the police, and the police, I knew one of the cops, he was a powder, and he goes, "Kevin, we can't tell them legally to remove themselves off the lake. I mean, if they go through the lake and then we have to save them, that's a bigger issue. But we can't tell them not to do what they're doing." I go, "But they're idiots." So, stupid me, I had my camera on because that day I had a story due, a job, and I had nothing. I go, "Well, there's the story." So I'm filming this whole incident. And I didn't show their faces, but all the locals were saying, "You're idiots. You're idiots. We have to deal with you idiots doing all this." So I call it "Don't be an idiot," right? And the local news and then global news and breakfast television showed the whole clip. And the next day, those guys were looking for me. They were going to beat the living crap out of me. They were like, "You bugger." I went, "Well, I didn't show your faces." Like, in social media, they were looking for me, right? Well, I was up at the local liquor store, and sure enough, they were there the same day. And they came up to me, and they were going to beat the living crap out of me for making them look like fools. The woman at the counter said, "You are idiots. This guy was right. You are idiots to be on the lake. You should have asked the locals." The people know where those conditions are. I mean, Chemung Lake, you would not know in that one particular area, there's an underwater stream that comes up in the middle of the lake. Nobody would know that, but the locals do. And I don't know how they didn't go through that day. I measured the ice. I got an auger, and it was like it was basically 1.5 inches thick. Yeah, and they brought their ATV on. Right, so how they didn't go through, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, with that being said, I think Keith Park hit it right on the nose here. No ice is truly safe. Best to stay off, especially if you're by yourself and you have no help. Keep your pets off. And you know what? This show could have gone on for like another 2 or 3 hours. There's so much to cover, and I think we just covered the tip of the iceberg. And now Kevin's taking off his lingerie. Yeah, you know what, guys? I think we're going to call it quits here because we're like almost 3 hours into the show now. By all means, if anybody has any questions after the fact or something that I've missed, leave it in the comments section down below, and I will get it off to the respective person to maybe get that answered. Guys, if you want to check back in a few days or something, check the comments because people will have questions after the fact. By all means, check out Kevin's website. Check out Pine Martin's website. They got some really good resources on there. Do a search under their channel, and you'll find out information and tips and tricks and techniques. Follow Nate Muskoka over on Instagram. He's got all kinds of beautiful shots there of the Muskoka area, Algonquin area. John's got all kinds of great tips and everything. Make sure you check out his website as well for more information on what he's doing for the Outdoor Kind LLC and trying to raise some much needed funds there for sure. Gentlemen, any closing statements before we sign off for the evening? Kevin?
Sorry.
Oh, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. It's very quick. If you've never done winter camping but you're curious about it, just do it in your backyard. You're going to feel a little goofy, but just take your camping equipment. You will find out what you have that works and what you have that doesn't, and you'll figure out that way what you need. And just build yourself a snow shelter. It's really simple. And I think you will discover it's easier than you imagine. There's just one thing that you need to keep in mind. Don't just leave your warm, heated house and then go out and try to sleep in a cold shelter. Your body will not be acclimated to the outdoors, and you will find it difficult. Spend some time, spend a few hours outside building the shelter, and as it gets dark, it gets dark very, very quickly. Get out the headlamp and start cooking your meal out there, not in your shelter, obviously, and then just bed down for the night. And I think you'll probably enjoy a really good sleep. That's it for me. Kevin?
Embrace winter. Love winter. Or watch Netflix all winter and get depressed. I don't know. Really?
Nate, anything?
Yeah, you know what? I think the shoulder seasons and the winter season this year, out of any other year in my recent memory, are going to be embraced and enjoyed by more people than ever. And I just hope everyone does it safely. And, Google is a wonderful resource, so don't take it for granted when you're going to go and try out an activity outdoors for the first time you've never tried. And make sure you do some research before heading out there, because unlike the heat of August, it could cost you dearly in the middle of January. So please do yourself a favor and do a good bunch of reading and watching before you head out. But I think, it would be a shame not to embrace the opportunities and the absolutely beautiful terrain that this part of the world offers you for the winter.
Yep.
Yeah, I just echo what Nate says. I mean, there's a lot of good resources. I just like doing this because it embarrasses Kevin.
I'm really bad. I got a problem with that. Whatever. Oh, look.
Nice T-shirt there.
No, but it is really good. Like with these, with these texts and particular.
Damn it, Nate! Damn it!
They have really good info in them, and I say that because it's tested and tried and true info, right? It's not somebody in a southern state who's offering his opinion about why a certain quilt or bag won't work in a certain situation or something, right? This is tried and true. So, do some research, get outside, and have a blast.
Awesome. Well, this is my quick little chance to say, everybody, you know what? The winter season should not be should not be left out of your arsenal for getting outdoors. There's some beautiful things that you can do out there, but the main thing that you have to think of first, if you're new at it, you have to think safety. Well, whether you're new or experienced at it, you have to think safety, safety, safety. The cold is nothing to be, nothing to, you plain and simple. You can get damaged out there. Okay, so everybody got to try and stay warm, keep yourself safe, and don't take any unnecessary chances. If you get the opportunity, do your first winter camping experience with somebody who has experience, or make sure you do a lot of research and gain the knowledge. Have the proper gear and keep yourself safe out there. The best thing you could do, like Pine Martin had said, try it first in your backyard. Give yourself a little test, and then maybe move up to something like Mew Lake on Highway 60 that's open all year round. Okay, it's a good opportunity. There's a lot of people there. They have warming huts, they have heated bathrooms, they have an ice skating rink facility, they have hiking all around there, things that you can do. So it's a good opportunity to go there, learn how to hot tent camp, cold tent camp, hammock tent. You could dig Quincy's out there. There's so many opportunities to enjoy the winter with the safety of having people around you too. And people are very warm and welcoming when it comes to that, because everybody knows what the cold can do to you. I don't know if that's well said enough, but just get out there and enjoy the cold weather. Just want to thank everybody on panel tonight for joining. Kevin, John, Martin, Nate, you guys are troopers for joining me this week when I really didn't have a solo guest. This is a perfect opportunity to do this. No, Kevin, I'm going to put you on mute.
No, once again that we didn't have anybody, so we got these guys.
No, hey, when I don't have a guest lined up, I always line up a topic. But you know what? This is a very, very well asked, and everybody was interested. Not everybody, but I had inquiries about. Kevin, you always blow things out of context.
No, I'm
pick on him.
No, I'm not looking at you, Dennis. Now, Nate is winning that friggin' hat contest. Son of a...
To everybody that joined in on the live stream tonight, there that were in the chat, you had some great questions. Everybody that joined panel tonight, thanks very much. I'm going to get one little plug in here before the night's over. Next week, you'll be seeing a little bit more about this. It's a company called The Short. I'm going to put myself full screen here really quick. It's the Short Hills Beard Company. They've given me some, seeing as I'm growing this little wool on my face, they've given me some beard, what's this called? Beard oil. Well, this is the beard oil, and then this is beard cream, right, for styling and stuff like that. Very cool. You can check them out on Instagram under Short Hills Beard Company. And check them out. They got some really neat products. It's just a new startup company. They've generously given me this to try out, and I thought I would give them a little plug. They have no idea I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. So with that being said, I just want to say thanks again, guys, for joining tonight. And everybody, don't forget, next week, another exciting show coming up. We have none other than Mr. Jim Baird on the show, and we're going to be talking about one of his latest adventures that he's just gone on and the series he's got going now. So it's going to be a fun night. So, Jim, if you're around, look forward to seeing you there. And I'm going to pull this back up, get all the panel back up. And once again, everybody, have a great night and keep the adventures alive. Until next week, stay safe and healthy.